"You're special, Vera. Never forget that." That's what her grandmother whispered to her every night before bed, stroking her hair with weathered hands that smelled of lavender and old promises. But when you're born an Omega in a world that worships alphas, when your own pack treats you like a defect that needs to be hidden away, you learn that special is just another word for broken. And Vera Ashwood would learn this truth the hardest way possible, alone in the dark woods, rejected by everyone she'd ever loved, waiting for death to find her beneath the stars. What she didn't know was that death would come with golden eyes and teeth like daggers. And it would change everything. Chapter 1. The Plain Daughter. The Ashwood pack didn't celebrate when Vera was born. There were no howls of joy echoing through the valley, no feast prepared in honor of the Alpha's newest child. Instead, there was silence, the kind that settles over a funeral, heavy and suffocating. Her mother, Luna Katherine Ashwood, had labored for 14 hours in the pack's main lodge, surrounded by midwives who whispered prayers to the moon goddess. Everyone had expected another Alpha, another golden child to add to the Ashwood legacy. What they got was Vera. Small, weak, Omega. Vera grew up knowing she was a disappointment before she could even walk, while her sister, Aurora, was paraded through pack gatherings like a prize jewel. Her alpha aura so strong it made visiting wolves bow their heads in submission. Vera was kept in the background, hidden, a secret shame. "Don't slouch, Vera," her mother would hiss at pack dinners, her perfectly manicured nails digging into Vera's shoulder. "At least, try to look presentable." Aurora would laugh, the sound like wind chimes, beautiful and careless. "Mother, let her slouch. It's not like anyone's looking at her anyway." The worst part? Aurora was right. Vera was 17 now, and she'd perfected the art of being invisible. She wore neutral colors, grays and browns that helped her blend into the woodwork. She kept her honey blonde hair tied back in a simple braid, never styled like Aurora's cascading golden curls. She'd learned to make herself small at gatherings, to occupy as little space as possible, to ensure her Omega scent, soft rain and wild chamomile, was always masked with scent blockers, because Omega scent attracted the wrong kind of attention. "You're lucky you're even allowed at these events," Aurora had told her once, applying crimson lipstick in the mirror they shared. Well, that Aurora had claimed. Vera was only allowed to use it when her sister wasn't around. "Father wanted to send you to the Omega quarters with the others. I convinced him to let you stay in the family wing. You should thank me." Vera never thanked her, because she knew the truth. Aurora kept her close not out of love, but to have a constant comparison. Next to Vera, Aurora shone even brighter. The Ashwood territory sprawled across the northern mountains, an expanse of pine forests and rocky peaks that had belonged to their bloodline for 7 generations. The pack lodge was built from ancient timber and stone, grand and imposing, with the Alpha's family quarters occupying the entire 3rd floor. Vera's room was the smallest, barely larger than a closet, tucked at the end of the hall near the servants' stairs. Aurora's suite was 4 times the size, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. "You don't need much space," her mother had said when Vera was 12, watching as servants moved her belongings to the smaller room. "It's not like you'll be inheriting anything. This is temporary until you're placed. The word every Omega feared. In the werewolf world, Omegas were commodities. They were married off to strengthen alliances, given to powerful alphas as mates, whether they wanted it or not. They had no choice, no voice. The moon goddess had cursed them with biology that made them weak during heats, vulnerable, dependent. Vera had just experienced her first heat 6 months ago. It had been hell, 3 days of fever and pain and desperate need that made her want to claw her own skin off. She'd locked herself in her tiny room, biting down on her pillow to muffle the whimpers. No one checked on her. Not her mother, not Aurora, not even her father. When it was over, when she'd finally emerged pale and shaking, her father had summoned her to his study. Alpha Richard Ashwood was a mountain of a man, 6'5", broad-shouldered, with silver streaking through his dark hair. His presence was suffocating. When he looked at Vera, his steel-gray eyes held nothing but disappointment. "You're of age now," he'd said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I've received 3 offers for your hand, 2 from neighboring packs, 1 from the Crescent Valley pack down south. Vera's heart had dropped into her stomach. "Father, you don't speak unless I ask you a question." His voice was ice. "I'll be reviewing the offers over the next few months. Whichever alliance benefits the Ashwood pack most, that's where you'll go. Understood?" She'd nodded, throat tight. "You're dismissed." That was 2 months ago. Since then, Vera had lived in a state of constant dread, waiting for her father to make his decision, waiting to learn which stranger she'd be forced to spend the rest of her life with. But everything changed the night of the Harvest Moon Festival. The festival was the biggest event of the year, a celebration where all the packs in the northern region gathered to honor the moon goddess and strengthen bonds. This year, the Ashwood pack was hosting, which meant their lodge was filled with visiting alphas, betas, and even a few omegas from other territories. Vera had been assigned to serving duty, while Aurora wore a stunning emerald gown and mingled with visiting dignitaries. Vera wore a plain servant's dress and carried trays of drinks through the crowded Great Hall. "More wine," an alpha from the Riverside pack demanded, shoving his empty glass at her without even looking. "Yes, sir," Vera murmured, refilling it. She was near the kitchen doors when she heard Aurora's laugh ring out above the music. Vera glanced over and felt her chest tighten. Her sister was standing with Damon Blackthorn Alpha of the most powerful pack in the region. He was breathtakingly handsome, tall and lean with dark hair and sharp features that looked carved from marble. But it was his eyes that people talked about, ice blue, intense, capable of pinning you in place with a single glance. Aurora had been pursuing him for months. Everyone knew it. She wanted to be Luna of the Blackthorn pack, wanted the power and prestige that came with it. "She's going to get what she wants," another servant whispered beside Vera. "Look at him. He can't take his eyes off her." It was true. Damon was watching Aurora with an expression Vera couldn't quite read. Interest? Fascination? Pain lanced through Vera's chest, not jealousy exactly, but something worse. Longing. Not for Damon specifically, but for what Aurora had: choice, freedom, the ability to pursue what she wanted, rather than being sold off like livestock. "You." Vera jumped. An older beta woman was glaring at her. "Stop daydreaming and bring more appetizers to the high table. Now." "Yes, ma'am." Vera hurried toward the kitchens, head down, trying to be invisible. She was so focused on not being noticed that she didn't see the person stepping backward until it was too late. She crashed directly into them. The tray went flying. Glasses shattered. Wine splashed across expensive clothing. Vera's horror was absolute. She'd just spilled an entire tray of drinks on. "Watch where you're going." Aurora, her sister, stood there. Emerald dress now stained dark red with wine, her face contorted with rage. The entire hall had gone silent. Everyone was staring. "You clumsy, worthless." Aurora raised her hand. The slap cracked across Vera's face like a whip. Her head snapped to the side, cheek exploding with pain. "Aurora!" Their mother appeared, face pale. But she wasn't rushing to Vera's defense. She was looking at the gathered crowd, at the visiting dignitaries witnessing this humiliation. "Take this. Take her out of here. Now." Two servants grabbed Vera's arms, hauling her toward the side exit. Through blurry vision, she caught one last glimpse of the hall. Aurora was being comforted by several alphas. Their mother was apologizing profusely to Damon Blackthorn. And her father. Her father was looking at Vera with pure disgust. She'd embarrassed the pack. In front of everyone, Vera knew she just knew that she'd crossed a line she could never come back from. Chapter 2. The punishment. They threw Vera into her room like she was garbage. She hit the floor hard, palms scraping against the rough wooden boards. The door slammed shut behind her, followed by the distinct click of a lock turning. They'd locked her in. Like a prisoner. Vera pushed herself up slowly, her cheek still throbbing from Aurora's slap. Her hands were shaking. Her chest felt too tight, like something was crushing her ribs from the inside. She'd ruined everything. The festival was supposed to showcase the Ashwood pack's strength, their hospitality, their prestige. Instead, Vera had made them look incompetent, careless, weak. She sank onto her narrow bed, pulling her knees to her chest. The sounds of the festival continued below, music and laughter filtering up through the floorboards. Life going on as if she didn't exist. As if she'd never existed at all. Hours passed. The music eventually faded. Footsteps echoed through the halls as guests retired to their rooms. Vera sat in the darkness, waiting. She knew her father would come. He always did when she'd disappointed him. The lock clicked open just after midnight. Alpha Richard Ashwood filled the doorway, his massive frame backlit by the hallway torches. He didn't enter, just stood there, looking at her with those cold gray eyes. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice was quiet, deadly quiet. Vera's throat closed up. "Father, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Damon Blackthorne was about to announce his intention to court Aurora. Each word was measured, precise. He was going to declare it publicly, in front of all the regional alphas. Do you understand what that means? The Blackthorne pack allying with ours through marriage? The power that would bring? Vera's stomach dropped. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. Because you never think beyond your own clumsiness, your own inadequacy. He stepped into the room, and Vera instinctively pressed herself against the wall. After your little spectacle, Damon left. Didn't even finish his drink. Said he needed to reconsider some things. No. The word came out as a whisper. Aurora is devastated. Your mother is humiliated. And I. He exhaled slowly, like he was trying to control himself. I have been far too lenient with you, Vera. I've let you live in this house, eat at our table, bear our name, despite what you are. What you are. Omega. Defective. Broken. I made a decision tonight, her father continued. The Crescent Valley Pack's offer for your hand? I'm accepting it. Alpha Garrett's son needs a mate, and you'll be leaving with their delegation in the morning. The room spun. In the morning? Father, please. You should be grateful. Garrett is being extraordinarily generous, considering his son is damaged. A training accident left him scarred, partially blind. No respectable Omega wants him. Richard's smile was cruel. But you're not respectable, are you? You're a stain on this family, and now you'll be someone else's problem. Tears burned Vera's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Refused to give him the satisfaction. You'll be ready at dawn. Pack only what you can carry. Everything else stays here. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Vera? Don't bother saying goodbye to anyone. No one wants to see you. The door closed. The lock clicked. Vera sat frozen for a long moment, her father's words echoing in her skull. Tomorrow. Dawn. Gone. She was being shipped off to marry a stranger, someone even other Omegas rejected. She'd be trapped in an unfamiliar pack, bound to a man she'd never met, forced to produce heirs and play the dutiful mate for the rest of her life. Unless, the thought came slowly, dangerously, unless she ran. Vera stood up, her decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. She couldn't do this, couldn't let them sell her off, couldn't spend her life as someone's unwanted burden. If she was going to be broken and worthless anyway, she might as well be broken and worthless on her own terms. She moved quickly, quietly. Her room had a window small, but she was smaller. She pulled out a canvas bag from under her bed and started packing. Spare clothes, a water canteen, matches, a hunting knife her grandmother had given her years ago. Not much, but it would have to be enough. The lodge was silent now. Everyone asleep after the festival. Vera cracked open her window, wincing at the slight creak. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. 3 stories up. Too high to jump safely. But there was a drain pipe running down the side of the building, just a few feet to the left. If she could reach it. Vera climbed onto the windowsill, bag slung across her back. Don't look down. Just don't look down. She stretched out her arm, fingers grasping for the pipe. Almost. Got it. She swung her body weight over, feet scrambling for purchase against the stone wall. The pipe groaned under her weight, but held. Vera began climbing down, inch by inch, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Halfway down, her foot slipped. She bit back a scream as she slid several feet, the rough metal scraping her palms raw, but she managed to catch herself, clinging desperately to the pipe. Breathe. Just breathe. Finally, her feet touched ground. Vera dropped into a crouch, scanning the darkness. The main lodge was behind her, windows dark. The pack borders were to the east, guarded by patrol wolves who ran the perimeter every night. She couldn't go that way, which meant she had to go deeper into the mountains, into the unclaimed territories, into the wild lands where rogues and worse things hunted. It was suicide. Everyone knew that. The deep mountains were dangerous, full of predators, treacherous terrain, and packs of wild wolves that answered to no alpha. Werewolves didn't venture there unless they had a death wish, but Vera was out of options. She ran. The forest swallowed her within minutes, trees closing in like prison bars. Vera didn't have a plan beyond away from the lodge, away from her family, away from the life that had been chosen for her. Her Omega wolf whimpered inside her mind, frightened and confused, but Vera pushed the feeling down. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs screamed. Ran until the lodge was far behind and the forest grew darker, wilder. Ran until she couldn't run anymore. When she finally collapsed, she was somewhere deep in the mountains. Somewhere she didn't recognize. Vera leaned against a tree, gasping for air. Her hands were bleeding from the drainpipe, her cheeks still swollen from Aurora's slap. She was alone in the wilderness with barely any supplies, and she'd never felt more free in her entire life. The thought made her laugh, a slightly hysterical sound that echoed through the trees. Free. She was free, even if that freedom killed her. Vera found a small clearing and decided to make camp. She couldn't keep running blindly through the dark. She'd break an ankle or walk off a cliff. Better to rest until dawn, then figure out her next move. She gathered fallen branches and managed to start a small fire with shaking hands. The flames pushed back the darkness, creating a tiny bubble of warmth and light. Vera sat beside it, pulling her jacket tighter. The night was full of sounds, rustling leaves, distant bird calls, the whisper of wind through branches, and underneath it all, something else. Something that made her wolf perk up nervously. Footsteps. No paw steps. Vera's blood turned to ice. She stood slowly, the hunting knife suddenly in her hand. The fire crackled beside her, casting dancing shadows. And then she saw them. Eyes. Dozens of glowing eyes, circling her clearing in the darkness. Wolves. Not werewolves, these were pure wolf. Wild. Massive. Their shoulders stood as high as her waist, their teeth gleaming white in the firelight. There were so many of them, forming a perfect circle around her camp. Vera's knife felt pathetically small in her hand. The wolves didn't attack, they just watched. Waiting, and then the circle parted. Something was moving through the pack, something larger than the others. Vera's breath caught as it stepped into the firelight. A wolf the size of a small horse, its fur so black it seemed to absorb the light around it. But its eyes were gold. Bright, intelligent gold that seemed to see straight through her. This wasn't a regular wolf. This was an alpha. The creature regarded her with those unsettling golden eyes, head tilted slightly, assessing, judging. Vera knew she should run, should shift and try to fight, should do something, but she couldn't move, could barely breathe. The massive black wolf took another step closer, then another. It was close enough now that Vera could feel the heat radiating from its body, could see the rise and fall of its powerful chest. Close enough to kill her with one swipe of its enormous paws. The wolf lowered its head and sniffed her. Vera stood perfectly still, every instinct screaming at her to flee. But there was nowhere to go. The pack still surrounded her, cutting off every escape route. The black wolf's nose traveled from her feet up to her face, taking in her scent. Then it did something that made Vera's heart stop. It pressed its massive head against her chest. Gently. Almost. Affectionately. What? The other wolves began to move. Not attacking, approaching. They pressed in close, surrounding Vera in a circle of fur and muscle and heat. Not threatening. Protective. The black wolf pulled back and looked at her again with those gold eyes. And Vera could have sworn she saw recognition there. Understanding, like it knew exactly what she was running from. The wolf turned and walked back toward the tree line, but it paused, looking over its shoulder at her, waiting. "Come with us," it seemed to say. "You're safe here." Vera's logical mind told her this was insane. Following a pack of wild wolves deeper into the mountains? That was a fairy tale way to die. But her wolf, her omega wolf that had been silent and suppressed her whole life, was practically purring. "Pack," it whispered. "This is Pack." The black wolf waited. And Vera, with nothing left to lose and nowhere else to go, made a choice. She followed. Chapter 3: The Wild Pack. The wolves moved through the forest like shadows, silent and swift. Vera struggled to keep up, her human form clumsy compared to their fluid grace. Branches caught at her clothes. Roots tried to trip her feet, but the black wolf never went too fast. It would pause every few minutes, waiting for her to catch her breath, those golden eyes patient and eerily intelligent. The other wolves formed a protective formation around her, some ahead, some behind, some flanking her sides, like they were guarding something precious. It made no sense. Wild wolves didn't protect humans. They certainly didn't protect werewolves, but these weren't normal wolves. Vera was becoming increasingly certain of that. They climbed higher into the mountains, following paths that barely existed. The air grew thinner, colder. Vera's lungs burned with each breath. But she pushed forward. What choice did she have? Turn back to face her father's wrath? To be shipped off to Crescent Valley like damaged goods? No. This was madness, but it was her madness. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a valley Vera had never seen before. It was hidden between two mountain peaks, accessible only through a narrow pass they'd just traversed. And it was beautiful. A river cut through the center, fed by waterfalls that cascaded down the rocky cliffs. Pine trees grew thick and tall, their branches creating a canopy that filtered the moonlight into silver beams. There were caves dotted along the valley walls. And in the center, Vera stopped, her jaw dropping. A den. A massive den built into the hillside, its entrance framed by ancient stones that looked deliberately placed. This wasn't just wilderness. This was a home. The black wolf led her toward it, and as they approached, more wolves emerged from the shadows. Dozens of them. A whole pack, watching her with curious eyes, but these wolves were, wrong. Too big. Too aware. The way they moved, the way they looked at her, it was almost human. Realization struck her like lightning. "You're not wolves," Vera whispered. "You're werewolves." The black wolf turned to face her, and then impossibly, horrifyingly, it began to change. Bones cracked and reformed, fur receded into skin. The massive beast contracted, shifted, transformed. Vera watched in stunned silence as the wolf became a man. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with a powerful build and dark hair that fell to his shoulders. His skin was bronzed, marked with scars that told stories of battles survived. But it was his eyes that held her captive, those same golden eyes, now in a devastatingly handsome human face with sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw. He was completely naked, utterly unself-conscious about it. "You're right," he said, his voice deep and rough like distant thunder. "We're not wolves, we're werewolves, but not like you." Vera's mind reeled. Not like, what does that mean? It means we don't belong to any pack. We don't follow alpha hierarchies or pack politics. We're ferals. He said the word like it was something to be proud of. Wolves who rejected the system and chose to live wild. Ferals. Vera had heard of them, cautionary tales told to young pups about werewolves who gave in to their animal nature completely, who abandoned civilization and became monsters. They were supposed to be mindless, violent, dangerous, but this man, this feral alpha, was looking at her with perfect clarity, and something that almost looked like kindness. "My name is Katherine," he continued. "I'm the alpha of this pack. And you're in our territory. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Vera started backing up. "I'll leave. I'll go." "Peace, little Omega." Katherine raised his hand, a calming gesture. "I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you sanctuary." Vera froze. "What?" "I could smell your fear from miles away. Terror and desperation, the scent of someone running from something worse than death. His golden eyes studied her face, taking in the bruise on her cheek, the raw scrapes on her palms. You're pack-born, well-bred, from the smell of you. But you ran. Why? The question was gentle, but Vera felt tears prick her eyes anyway. Because they were going to sell me, trade me off to strengthen an alliance, and I couldn't. I couldn't be someone's bargaining chip anymore. Kieran's expression darkened. The pack system, he said with disgust. Treating people like property. This is why we left. We? Vera looked around at the other wolves, some still in animal form, others shifting back to human. Men and women, young and old, all watching her with varying degrees of curiosity. All of us. Kieran gestured to his pack. Every wolf here was rejected by the pack system. Too weak, too damaged, too rebellious. The unwanted ones. His smile was sharp. We found each other and built something better. A woman approached, lean and athletic, with short silver hair and striking amber eyes. She was naked too, freshly shifted, but carried herself with the same unself-conscious confidence as Kieran. Another stray, Kieran. Her voice was wry but not unkind. This is Sage, Kieran introduced. My second. Sage, this is Vera, she supplied quietly. Vera Ashwood. Sage's eyebrows shot up. Ashwood? As in the Northern Ashwood Pack? Vera nodded, bracing for judgment, but Sage just laughed, a bright, startling sound. Oh, I bet Richard is losing his mind right now. His precious bloodline, running off into the wilderness. She grinned at Vera. I like you already. You know my father? Know of him, Sage corrected. I was from the Riverside Pack originally. Left 3 years ago, when my alpha tried to force me into a mating with his brother. Killed the brother when he tried to claim me anyway, she said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. Been feral ever since. Best decision I ever made. Vera stared at her. This woman had killed an alpha and lived, had chosen freedom over submission and survived. It seemed impossible. You're safe here, Kieran said, drawing Vera's attention back to him. No one will force you into anything. No one will hurt you. You can stay as long as you need to decide what you want to do next. I don't understand, Vera said slowly. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. Kieran's expression softened. Because I was you once. 14 years ago, I was a young alpha in the Shadowpine Pack. My father wanted me to challenge our alpha for dominance. Said it was my destiny, my birthright. But I didn't want to kill someone just to prove I was stronger. So I refused. He looked away, toward the dark forest beyond. My father disowned me, called me weak, unworthy of the alpha name. So I left, came to these mountains to die, honestly. What changed? Vera asked. I found others like me, wolves who didn't fit the mold. We formed our own pack, one built on choice instead of hierarchy, on freedom instead of obligation. He met her eyes again. We've been here ever since, taking in strays who need shelter from the storm. Vera's throat tightened. All her life, she'd been taught that pack was everything, that the hierarchy was natural, ordained by the moon goddess herself. Alphas ruled, betas served, omegas submitted. That was the order of things. But here was an entire pack that had rejected that order. And they seemed happy. I can't shift, Vera blurted out suddenly. She didn't know why she said it, maybe because these people were being so kind, and she needed them to know the truth before they wasted their compassion on her. I mean, I can, but I'm weak. My wolf is small and pathetic. I'm Omega. I'm valuable, Kieran interrupted firmly. Omegas are valuable, Vera. Not because of what the packs say, breeding stock and alliance tools, but because Omega energy is what holds a pack together. It's the glue, the heart. Without Omegas, alphas tear each other apart, fighting for dominance. Sage nodded. We have 2 other Omegas in the pack. Both of them chose to be here. Both of them are cherished. She smiled. You'll meet them tomorrow. Right now, you look dead on your feet. Vera realized she was swaying slightly, exhaustion finally catching up with adrenaline. When was the last time she'd slept? Actually slept, not just laid awake worrying. Come, Kieran said gently. We'll get you settled." He led her into the den, and Vera was shocked to find it warm and well-maintained inside. Furs lined the floors and walls, creating insulation. There were separate chambers branching off from the main cavern, each one clearly someone's personal space. Torches burned in brackets, casting flickering light. It was primitive, compared to the Ashwood Lodge, but it was cozy, lived in, like a real home. Kieran showed her to a small chamber near the back. This was empty. "You can use it as long as you're here." He paused. "We don't have much in the way of human things. Most of us prefer being in wolf form, but Sage can probably find you some clothes that fit. There's a hot spring about 100 yards north if you want to wash up." Vera looked at the small space, at the pile of furs that would serve as a bed, at the natural shelf carved into the rock wall. It was sparse, basic. It was more than anyone in the Ashwood pack had ever offered her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. I don't know how to repay." "You don't repay kindness," Kieran said simply. "That's the first rule of this pack. We take care of each other because that's what family does. No debts, no obligations, just care." He left her alone then, pulling a leather curtain across the entrance to give her privacy. Vera stood in the small chamber, her bag still slung over her shoulder, and felt something break open inside her chest. It was like a dam bursting, all the fear and pain and loneliness she'd been holding back for 17 years suddenly flooding out. She sank onto the furs and wept. But these weren't tears of despair, they were tears of relief, because for the first time in her life, someone had looked at her, at broken, worthless Omega Vera, and said, "You're valuable, you're safe, you belong," and she'd believed them. Vera woke to sunlight streaming through a crack in the rock wall. For a moment, she was disoriented. This wasn't her tiny room in the Ashwood Lodge. The scent was all wrong, earthy and wild instead of polish and perfume. Then memory crashed back. The festival. Aurora's slap. Her father's ultimatum. The escape. The wolves. Vera sat up slowly, wincing at the ache in her muscles. Every part of her body hurt. Her palms were scabbed over from the drainpipe. Her legs screamed from all the running. Her face throbbed where her sister had struck her. But she was alive. She was free. Voices echoed from the main cavern, laughter and conversation. The sounds of people waking up and starting their day. Vera stood and peeked around the leather curtain. The den was bustling with activity. Wolves in various states of dress were moving around, some fully clothed in rough-hewn leather and furs, others completely naked and unbothered. A fire burned in a pit at the center, and someone was cooking what smelled like freshly caught fish. Vera's stomach growled loudly. "You're awake." Sage appeared beside her, making Vera jump. The silver-haired woman was dressed now in fitted leather pants and a simple tunic. "Good. You look less like a terrified rabbit this morning. Come on, breakfast." She didn't wait for Vera to respond, just grabbed her arm and pulled her into the main cavern. Wolves looked up as they passed, offering nods and curious smiles. No one stared at the bruise on her face. No one whispered behind their hands about her Omega scent. They just accepted her presence. Sage led her to the fire where a young man was expertly filleting fish. He had warm brown skin and kind eyes, his dark hair pulled back in a bun. "This is River," Sage introduced. "He's one of our Omegas. River, meet Vera." River looked up and smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. "Welcome. Here, you must be starving." He handed her a piece of cooked fish on a flat stone that served as a plate. Vera took it hesitantly. "Thank you." River was from the Eastern Coastal Pack, Sage explained, sitting cross-legged by the fire. Left when his alpha tried to mate him to a visiting dignitary without his consent. "Didn't just try," River corrected cheerfully. "Actually went through with the claiming ceremony. So I waited until he fell asleep and broke both his legs." His smile never wavered. "Then I ran. Kieran found me half dead from exhaustion about 2 years ago." Vera stared at him. Sweet, gentle-looking River had crippled an alpha. "Don't look so shocked," River laughed. "Omegas aren't weak, Vera. We're just taught to believe we are." "There's a difference." Before Vera could respond, another voice called out, "Fresh meat incoming." A group of wolves entered the den, carrying a deer carcass between them. They were laughing, covered in dirt and blood, clearly energized from the hunt. Kieran was among them, and he caught Vera's eye across the cavern. He inclined his head slightly, a greeting, an acknowledgement. Vera felt her cheeks flush and quickly looked away. What was wrong with her? She'd just escaped one pack. She shouldn't be feeling whatever this fluttering sensation was. He's single, you know, Sage said quietly beside her, amusement in her voice. I wasn't. Relax, I'm teasing. Sage bumped her shoulder. But for the record, Kieran is a good male. The best I've ever known, actually. He'd never take advantage. Vera nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The morning passed in a blur of new experiences. River showed her the hot spring where she could bathe. Sage found her clothes that actually fit, soft leather pants and a wool tunic that was warm without being restrictive. Another pack member, an older beta woman named Frost, taught her how to properly gut and clean a fish. Everyone treated her like she was already part of the pack, like she'd always belonged. It was disconcerting and wonderful and terrifying all at once. By midday, Vera found herself sitting on a rock, outcropping overlooking the valley, just breathing. Processing. The sun was warm on her face, the breeze carried the scent of pine and wildflowers, and for the first time in years, she felt her shoulders relax. Mind if I join you? Kieran climbed up beside her, settling on the rock with easy grace. He'd cleaned up from the hunt, and was wearing dark leather pants and a loose shirt. His long hair was still damp. It's your territory, Vera said. I should be asking you that. This isn't about territory, it's about respect. Kieran looked out over the valley. How are you holding up? Vera considered lying, but something about those golden eyes made her want to be honest. I don't know. Part of me keeps waiting to wake up, or for someone to tell me this is all a trick. It's not a trick. I know. Logically, I know that. But I've spent my whole life being told I'm worthless, that omegas are weak and need to be protected and controlled. And now you're all saying the opposite, and You don't know who to believe, Kieran finished. Vera nodded. Believe your instincts, Kieran said. Your wolf knows the truth. She knows when she's being respected versus controlled. Listen to her. Vera closed her eyes, reaching for that part of herself she usually kept buried. Her wolf stirred, lazy and content in a way she'd never felt before. Safe, her wolf murmured. This is safe. This is right. My pack will be looking for me, Vera said, opening her eyes. My father won't let me go without consequences. He'll send trackers. Let them come. Kieran's voice was hard. This valley is warded by magic older than the pack system. Your father's trackers won't be able to find it unless we want them to. You're under my protection now, Vera. No one takes wolves from my pack against their will. The certainty in his voice made something warm unfurl in Vera's chest. Protection. Real protection. Not the conditional kind that came with endless strings attached. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? You could have just let me pass through, sent me on my way. Kieran was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I remember what it feels like to have nowhere to go, to be rejected by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. I swore when I formed this pack that I'd never turn away someone who needed sanctuary. He looked at her. You needed sanctuary, Vera. So I gave it. Simple as that. It wasn't simple. Nothing about this was simple. But sitting here in the sunshine with this feral alpha who'd offered her safety without demanding anything in return, Vera felt something shift inside her. Hope. Fragile and tentative, but real. Maybe, just maybe, there was a life beyond the one she'd been born into. Maybe she could actually be free. Chapter 4. Learning to be wild. The days blurred together in a way that should have been disorienting but somehow felt natural. Vera fell into the rhythm of the feral pack like she'd always belonged there, waking with the sunrise, helping with daily tasks, learning skills she'd never been taught in the Ashwood Lodge. It had been a week since she'd arrived, and already the Ashwood pack felt like a distant nightmare. You're gripping too tight, Sage said, adjusting Vera's fingers on the bow. Archery is about letting go, not holding on. They were in a clearing about half a mile from the den, practicing. Sage had insisted that every member of the pack needed to know how to hunt and defend themselves, regardless of designation. Omegas don't fight in my old pack, Vera said, focusing on the target, a crude circle carved into a tree trunk 50 feet away. That's because your old pack was run by idiots. Sage stepped back. Now breathe out and release. Vera exhaled slowly and let the arrow fly. It wobbled through the air and struck the tree, not the target, but at least she'd hit something. Better. Sage clapped her on the shoulder. Last week you couldn't even draw the bowstring. Progress. Pride bloomed warm in Vera's chest. Such a small thing hitting a tree with an arrow, but it felt monumental, like proof that she was capable of more than she'd been told. Again, Sage instructed, handing her another arrow. They practiced until Vera's arms trembled with exhaustion, but she didn't complain. Each arrow that flew felt like shedding another piece of the helpless Omega she'd been raised to be. When they returned to the den, River was teaching a group of younger wolves how to identify medicinal herbs. He waved Vera over enthusiastically. Perfect timing. I need someone to test my new salve. He held up a clay pot filled with green paste. It's for healing bruises and inflammation. That mark on your face is fading, but this should help it along. Vera touched her cheek self-consciously. The bruise from Aurora's slap had yellowed at the edges, but it was still visible. A reminder of who she'd been. What she'd escaped. River dipped his fingers in the salve and gently applied it to her face. His touch was careful, professional. There. Should take the last of the swelling down by tomorrow. Thank you, Vera said softly. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. River's warm eyes met hers. We take care of our own here. That includes you. Our own. The words settled over Vera like a blanket. She was part of something now, not just tolerated, but wanted. River. One of the younger wolves, a beta boy who couldn't be older than 16, spoke up nervously. Can Omegas really be healers? My old pack said Omegas were only good for breeding and looking pretty? River finished with a wry smile. The boy nodded, embarrassed. That's what they want you to believe. But Omegas have always been healers, caregivers, the heart of the pack. We're naturally attuned to others' pain, which makes us excellent at treating it. The pack system just twisted that gift into a weakness. He turned to address all the young wolves. Every designation has strengths. Alphas are natural leaders and protectors. Betas are adaptable and stable. Omegas are empathetic and nurturing. But those are tendencies, not limitations. An alpha can be a healer. A beta can be a leader. An omega can be a warrior. He glanced at Vera with a knowing smile. Never let anyone tell you what you can't do based on what you were born as. The young wolves nodded, absorbing this lesson. Vera felt her throat tighten with emotion. This was what pack should have been all along. Teaching, supporting, empowering, not controlling. That evening, the entire pack gathered around the central fire for dinner. It had become Vera's favorite time of day, the moment when everyone came together to share food and stories. There was no hierarchy here, no high table where alphas sat above everyone else. Kieran ate beside the newest pack member with the same easy camaraderie he showed his second. Tell us a story, Frost, one of the younger wolves called out. The older beta woman smiled, her weathered face crinkling. All right, let me tell you about the moon goddess and the first wolf. Vera listened, mesmerized, as Frost wove a tale she'd never heard before, a version of their origin story, where the moon goddess didn't create hierarchies or designations. In this telling, she created wolves to be free, wild, and equal. It was humans who'd later corrupted the gift with their need for order and control. Is that true? Vera whispered to Sage, who sat beside her. Sage shrugged. Who knows? The pack system has been around so long, everyone's forgotten what came before. But I like Frost's version better. Makes more sense that we'd twist a blessing into chains ourselves. Very human of us. When the story ended, Kieran stood. We have a hunt planned for tomorrow. The deer population is moving south for winter, so it's our last chance for a good stalk before the cold really hits. I need volunteers. Hands shot up around the circle. Alphas, betas, even River raised his hand. Vera, Kieran's golden eyes found her across the fire. You've been training with Sage. You ready to join your first pack hunt? Every eye turned to her. Vera's instinct was to shrink back, to make herself small and decline. Pack hunts in the Ashwood territory were alpha affairs. Omegas stayed behind, safe and useless, but River's words echoed in her mind. Never let anyone tell you what you can't do based on what you were born as. And beneath that, her wolf stirred with eager energy. Hunt. Want to hunt. Want to run with Pack. Vera lifted her chin. Yes. I'm ready. Kieran's smile was proud. Good. We leave at dawn. Vera barely slept that night, too anxious and excited. Her wolf was practically vibrating with anticipation, pushing at her skin like she wanted to burst free and run right now. Patience, Vera told her. Soon, when dawn finally broke, she was already awake and dressed. The hunting party gathered outside the den, 12 wolves in total, including Kieran, Sage, River, and several others Vera had gotten to know over the past week. The rules are simple, Kieran addressed them in the pre-dawn darkness. We move as one. The goal is to separate a deer from the herd and take it down cleanly. No unnecessary suffering. We take what we need, nothing more, and we thank the prey for its sacrifice. Understood? Everyone nodded. Then shift. Let's run. The pack erupted into transformation. Bones cracked and reformed, skin rippled and sprouted fur. Within moments, 12 wolves stood where humans had been. Vera had never shifted in front of others before. In the Ashwood pack, she'd always hidden away during transformations, ashamed of her small, weak wolf form. But here, no one was watching her with judgment. They were focused on the hunt ahead. She let go. The change swept through her like a wave, painful but exhilarating. Her bones shortened and reshaped, her muscles compressed and restructured. Fur sprouted across her skin in shades of honey gold and cream. In seconds, she stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Her wolf form was small compared to the others, barely reaching Kieran's shoulder. But she felt powerful, connected to the earth beneath her paws, to the wind carrying 1,000 scents, to the pack surrounding her with warm, welcoming energy. Kieran, massive and black as midnight approached, and touched his nose to hers, a greeting, an acceptance. Then he threw back his head and howled. The pack answered, voices rising in a chorus that echoed through the mountains. And Vera, for the first time in her life, added her voice to the song. Her howl was higher, softer than the others, but it blended perfectly with the harmony. This was what she'd been missing. This connection, this belonging. Run. Kieran's mental voice touched her mind. Pack bonds allowed limited communication in wolf form, and apparently the feral pack's bonds were strong. Stay close. Trust your instincts. Then they were moving. The pack flowed through the forest like liquid shadow, silent and coordinated. Vera ran in the middle of the formation, protected but not coddled. Her smaller size actually worked to her advantage. She could dart between trees and under branches that the larger wolves had to go around. The scent of deer hit her nose like a physical thing. Fresh, close. There, Sage's voice echoed in her mind. 200 yards ahead, herd of 8. We take the old buck at the rear, he's limping. The pack adjusted course smoothly. Vera's heart pounded with exhilaration as they closed the distance. She could see the deer now through the trees, grazing in a small clearing. The buck Sage had mentioned was indeed favoring his left rear leg. Circle formation, Kieran commanded. Don't attack until I give the signal. We do this with honor. The pack spread out, creating a wide perimeter around the deer herd. The animals sensed danger but couldn't pinpoint the direction the wolves were downwind, silent, invisible. Now, they moved as one. The deer scattered in panic, but the pack had already cut off most escape routes. The old buck tried to run despite his injury, but Sage and another wolf herded him away from the herd, toward Kieran. Vera watched in awe as Kieran took the buck down, with one precise leap, jaws closing around the throat. The kill swift and merciful. The buck barely had time to struggle before it was over. Well done. Kieran's voice carried approval to the whole pack. Vera. Approach. Vera hesitated, then picked her way forward. The buck lay still on the ground, Kieran standing over it respectfully. Place your paw on its shoulder, he instructed. Thank it for feeding the pack. This is our way. Vera did as she was told, pressing her small paw against the deer's warm shoulder. In her mind, she whispered, "Thank you for your sacrifice. We won't waste what you've given us." She felt Kieran's approval like warm sunshine. "Good, you understand." The journey back to the den was triumphant. The pack took turns carrying the buck, working together to bring their prize home. Vera helped as best she could, her smaller jaws gripping the deer's leg as she pulled alongside River. "You did well for your first hunt." River's voice touched her mind, warm with pride. "I was terrified my first time. Hid behind Kieran the whole chase." "Really?" Vera couldn't imagine brave, confident River being scared of anything. "Really. Being Omega doesn't mean we're naturally brave. We just learn to fake it until it's real." His mental voice carried humor. "You're learning faster than I did." When they returned, the pack worked together to process the deer. Kieran showed Vera how to properly butcher the meat, which parts were best for immediate cooking versus preservation. Nothing was wasted. The hide would be cured for clothing, the bones used for tools, even the organs carefully harvested. "This is respect," Kieran explained as they worked. His hands were bloodied but gentle. "Taking a life to sustain our own is necessary, but we honor the sacrifice. We use everything, waste nothing, and we're grateful." It was so different from the Ashwood pack, where hunting was sport, where alphas would kill for the thrill and leave carcasses to rot as displays of dominance. "You're thinking about your old pack," Kieran observed, reading her expression. Vera nodded. "They never taught me any of this. I wasn't allowed on hunts. Wasn't allowed to learn butchering or tracking or any survival skills. I was just decorative, useless." "You were never useless." Kieran's golden eyes were fierce. "They made you dependent so you'd be easier to control. That's what the pack system does. It takes natural gifts and perverts them into weaknesses, makes Omegas helpless so they'll accept being property." His anger on her behalf made Vera's chest tight. "Is that why you left? Because you saw through the system?" "Partly." Kieran was quiet for a moment, his hands still working. "But mostly I left because I refused to kill my best friend to prove I was alpha enough. The pack system demands constant dominance challenges, constant violence to maintain hierarchy. I was tired of it, tired of watching good wolves die for pride." "What happened to your friend?" "He's alpha of the Shadowpine pack now. We don't speak. Me leaving was seen as betrayal, but I hear he's doing well. Better than I could have. Probably. He actually wanted the position." Kieran glanced at her. "Not everyone is suited for the life they're born into, Vera. There's no shame in wanting something different. I used to think there was something wrong with me," Vera admitted quietly, "for not wanting what I was supposed to want. For dreaming about running away instead of accepting my fate. There's nothing wrong with wanting freedom. That's the most natural thing in the world." They worked in comfortable silence after that, side by side, until the deer was fully processed and the meat hanging to dry. That night, the pack feasted on fresh venison. Vera ate until she was pleasantly full, surrounded by wolves who laughed and told stories and included her in every conversation. She was part of something real here, something good. As the fire died down and pack members drifted off to sleep, Vera found herself alone by the embers with Kieran. He was carving something from a piece of antler, one of the points from today's buck. "What are you making?" she asked. "A pendant, for you." He held it up, a small disc with a crescent moon carved into the surface. "It's tradition in our pack. When someone completes their first successful hunt, they get a token to commemorate it." Vera's breath caught. "You don't have to. I want to." Kieran threaded a leather cord through the hole he'd drilled in the pendant and held it out. "May I?" Vera nodded, unable to speak. Kieran stood and moved behind her, gently lifting her braid to fasten the pendant around her neck. His fingers were warm against her skin, sending little sparks of awareness through her. The pendant settled just below her collarbone, the carved moon catching the firelight. "There," Kieran said softly, moving back around to face her. "Now you're officially pack." Tears pricked Vera's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." His smile was gentle. "Just keep being yourself. Keep growing into who you're meant to be. That's enough." Vera touched the pendant, feeling the smooth bone warm beneath her fingers. A week ago, she'd been broken, worthless. running into the wilderness to die. Now, she was a hunter, a pack member, someone with value beyond what she could provide to others. Subscribe if you believe Vera deserves this second chance, because wolves like Vera need people who won't abandon them when they finally find where they belong. Drop a comment if you know what it's like to finally find your pack. Kieran, Vera said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when no one else did. His golden eyes held hers in the firelight. I've always seen you, Vera. From the moment you stumbled into our territory, terrified but still standing. You've always been strong. You just needed a place where that strength was allowed to grow. Something passed between them in that moment. Understanding, connection. Something deeper that Vera wasn't ready to name. Her wolf stirred restlessly, drawn to this alpha in ways that scared and thrilled her, but she pushed those feelings down. She'd just escaped being forced into a mating. The last thing she needed was to develop feelings for someone else, no matter how kind he was. Still, as she settled into her den for the night, the pendant resting against her heart, Vera couldn't help but smile. For the first time in 17 years, she was happy, and she was just beginning to realize how powerful a feeling that was. Chapter 5. The Search Party. Vera woke to the sound of urgent voices and the acrid scent of fear. Something was wrong. She scrambled out of her chamber, still half asleep, and nearly collided with River, who was rushing past. "What's happening?" she asked, grabbing his arm. River's warm eyes were troubled. Scouts just reported movement at the eastern border. A search party. Large one, at least 20 wolves, all wearing Ashwood pack colors. Vera's blood turned to ice. My father. Looks like it. Kieran's calling an emergency pack meeting. Come on. They hurried to the main cavern where the entire pack was already gathering. Kieran stood at the center, his presence commanding attention even in human form. Sage was beside him, along with 3 wolves, Vera recognized as the pack's best scouts, Ghost, Raven, and Talon. Report, Kieran ordered, his voice clipped and professional. Ghost, a lean woman with silver-streaked hair, stepped forward. 23 wolves total, lead by an alpha male matching Richard Ashwood's description. They're using tracking magic blood scent specifically. They have something of Vera's, probably from her room. Vera's stomach dropped. Of course they did. Her father would have kept something, a pillowcase, a piece of clothing, anything that carried her scent. Blood magic could follow that trail anywhere. How close are they to the valley? Kieran asked. 2 miles out, maybe less. But here's the interesting part, they keep circling. Like they can sense she's near but can't pinpoint the location. Ghost glanced at Vera. The wards are holding. They're confused, getting frustrated. That won't last, Sage said grimly. Eventually they'll try to force their way through. And if they bring a witch or a shaman who knows how to break wards, then we have a problem, Kieran finished. His jaw tightened. We need to decide how to handle this. Options? We could fight, one of the younger alphas suggested. His name was Storm, and he was always eager for confrontation. We outnumber them if we count our whole pack. We could drive them off our territory. And start a war? Sage shook her head. The Ashwood pack isn't just Richard and his trackers. It's 100 wolves with alliances across the northern territories. They could call in support from a dozen other packs. We'd be crushed. We could negotiate, River offered quietly. Explain that Vera came here of her own free will, that she's under our protection. Maybe they'd back down. You don't know my father, Vera said, her voice hollow. He doesn't negotiate, he doesn't compromise, and he certainly doesn't care about what I want. She looked at Kieran, fear and guilt warring in her chest. This is my fault. I brought this to your territory. I should go with them. End this before someone gets hurt. No. Kieran's voice cracked like a whip. Absolutely not. Your pack now, Vera. We don't abandon our own. But. No buts. He crossed to her, placing his hands on her shoulders. His golden eyes were fierce, burning with determination. Listen to me. You are not property. You are not a bargaining chip. You are a person with agency and choice, and I will not let anyone take that from you. Not your father, not any pack, not anyone. Do you understand? Vera's eyes burned with unshed tears. You could lose everything because of me. Then we lose everything standing for what's right. Kieran looked around at the gathered pack. Anyone who disagrees can speak now. But know this, if we give up Vera to appease her father, we're no better than the pack system we rejected. We become cowards who only protect the people who are convenient. Silence stretched through the cavern. Then Sage stepped forward. I stand with Vera. As do I, River added immediately. And I, Frost called out. One by one, every member of the pack voiced their support. Even Storm, who'd suggested fighting, nodded firmly. She's pack. We don't give up pack. Vera felt something break and rebuild inside her chest. These wolves, these ferals who owed her nothing, were willing to risk everything to keep her safe. It was more than her blood family had ever offered. Thank you, she whispered, her voice cracking. All of you. I don't deserve. You do, Kieran said firmly. Now, we need a plan that doesn't involve either surrender or open warfare. He turned to Ghost. How long before they try to breach the wards? Hard to say. Could be hours, could be days. Depends on if they brought someone who can sense magic. We have to assume they did. Richard Ashwood didn't become alpha by being unprepared. Kieran paced, his tactical mind clearly working. Sage, take a team and reinforce the wards. See if we can strengthen them, make them even harder to track. On it, Sage said, already gesturing to several pack members. Ghost, Raven, Talon, keep eyes on the search party. I want to know if they bring in reinforcements or if anyone tries to break the wards. Report any changes immediately. The scouts nodded and disappeared. Everyone else, prepare for the possibility of a siege. Stock up on supplies, secure the den, make sure the young ones know where to hide if things go bad. Kieran's voice was steady, controlled. A true alpha taking care of his pack. We don't panic, we don't provoke, but we also don't surrender. Clear? Clear, the pack echoed. As everyone dispersed to their tasks, Vera stood frozen in place. This was really happening. Her father had come for her, and he wasn't going to leave without answers. Vera. Kieran touched her elbow gently. Come with me. He led her out of the den and up to the rock outcropping where they'd talked days before. The sun was just rising, painting the valley in shades of gold and pink. It was beautiful and peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm gathering at their borders. You're blaming yourself, Kieran said. It wasn't a question. Shouldn't I? If I'd just accepted my fate, if I'd gone to Crescent Valley like my father wanted, none of this would be happening. And you'd be miserable, trapped, slowly dying inside while pretending to smile. Kieran turned to face her fully. Vera, listen to me. What your father did, what the entire pack system does, is wrong. Forcing people into matings they don't want, treating designations like they determine worth, using fear and obligation to maintain control. All of it is wrong. You running was the bravest thing you could have done. It doesn't feel brave, it feels selfish. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. His voice softened. I know you're scared. I know you feel guilty. But you have to understand, this confrontation was always going to happen. The pack system and wolves like us, we're fundamentally opposed. We represent everything they fear: freedom, choice, rejection of their authority. Eventually, they were always going to try to bring us to heel. So, I'm just the excuse they needed? You're the catalyst, maybe, but not the cause. Kieran looked out over the valley. I've been expecting something like this for years. We've taken in dozens of runaways, helped countless wolves escape bad situations. The established packs have tolerated us because we stay hidden, stay out of their politics. But we were always going to cross a line eventually. I just wish it wasn't my line, Vera said quietly. I don't. When she looked at him in surprise, Kieran smiled slightly. Because if it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. And I'm glad I get to fight for you specifically. You deserve to be fought for. The sincerity in his voice made Vera's chest ache. How did he do that? Make her feel valuable with just a few words, when 17 years of her life had taught her she was worthless? What if they breach the wards? She asked. What if they get through? Then we deal with it, together. Kieran's golden eyes held hers. But Vera, I need you to promise me something. No matter what happens, no matter how bad it looks, don't sacrifice yourself to save us. Don't go with them thinking it'll make things better. It won't. It'll just teach them that threatening the people you love is an effective strategy. The people I love? Vera's heart stuttered. Your pack, Kieran clarified, though something in his expression made her wonder if he meant something more. Promise me, Vera, you won't give up. Vera thought about her grandmother's words, whispered so long ago. You're special, Vera. Never forget that. At the time, she'd thought it was a comforting lie, but maybe her grandmother had seen something Vera was only now beginning to understand. She wasn't broken. She was just born into a system designed to make her feel that way. I promise, Vera said. I won't give up. Good. Kieran's smile was warm, proud. Now come on. Let's go help Sage with those wards. You might be surprised what an Omega can do with protective magic. The next several hours were a flurry of activity. Sage taught Vera how to weave her energy into the existing wards. Apparently, Omega energy was particularly good for protective magic because it focused on nurturing and preservation rather than force. Think of it like you're wrapping the valley in a blanket, Sage instructed as they stood at one of the ward anchors, an ancient stone covered in carved symbols. You want to hide it, keep it safe, channel that feeling into the stone. Vera placed her hands on the rock and reached for her wolf. Usually she suppressed her Omega nature, the instinct to protect and care for others. But now she let it flow freely, pouring that energy into the ward. The stone warmed beneath her palms. The carved symbols began to glow with soft golden light. Yes, Sage laughed. Moon's mercy, you're a natural. The ward is strengthening, I can feel it. They moved from anchor to anchor, Vera adding her energy to each one. By the time they finished, she was exhausted but satisfied. The valley felt more secure, wrapped in layers of protection that would confuse and repel anyone trying to find it. That should buy us some time, Sage said, looking pleased. Your father's trackers will be walking in circles for days. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Ghost appeared just before sundown, her face grim. We have a problem. Richard Ashwood brought a shaman, an old woman from the Mountain Ridge pack. She started performing a breaking ritual. Kieran, who'd been organizing supply stores, went very still. How long until the wards fall? With Vera's reinforcement? Maybe 2 days, 3 if we're lucky. Ghost's silver eyes were troubled. But Kieran, there's something else. The shaman. She's calling on blood magic. Ancient stuff. She's not just trying to break the wards, she's trying to compel Vera to come to them. Vera felt the blood drain from her face. Compel me? Blood magic uses familial bonds, River explained, appearing beside them with his herb basket. He must have been gathering supplies. Your father shares your blood. If the shaman is strong enough, she can use that connection to create a pull. You won't be able to resist. You'll feel compelled to walk right to them. Can we counter it? Kieran demanded. Maybe. If we sever the blood bond first. River looked at Vera apologetically. But that's complicated and painful. It means ritually rejecting your birth pack, cutting yourself off from your family permanently. There's no going back from it. Vera thought about her family. Her father, who'd only ever seen her as a disappointment. Her mother, who'd never defended her. Aurora, who'd delighted in her humiliation. How do we do it? She asked. Vera, think carefully, Kieran warned. This isn't just symbolic. If you sever the blood bond, you'll never be able to rejoin the Ashwood pack. You'll be considered dead to them, an outcast. I was already an outcast. They just let me live in their house. Vera lifted her chin. I don't want that bond anymore, Kieran. I don't want any connection to people who treated me like property. Tell me how to sever it. River and Kieran exchanged glances. Then River sighed. All right. But we need to do it tonight. Before the shaman's compulsion gets too strong. Gather the pack. This requires witnesses. The moon was high when the pack assembled in the main cavern. Someone had drawn a circle in white ash on the stone floor, and River had prepared a bowl of herbs that smoked with pungent incense. Vera stood in the center of the circle, her heart pounding. Kieran was beside her not as alpha, but as support. River stood at the circle's edge, holding an ancient-looking knife. The ritual is simple but binding, River explained to the gathered pack. Vera will speak words of rejection, severing her ties to the Ashwood pack. Then she'll offer blood to seal the break. Once it's done, she'll be packless, a lone wolf, until she's formally accepted into a new pack. How do I get accepted into a new pack? Vera asked nervously. I'll handle that part, Kieran said quietly. Trust me. River began chanting in the old tongue, the language that predated modern packs, used only for the most sacred rituals. The words washed over Vera like water, and she felt something stir in her blood. The bond to her birth pack, thin and frayed as it was, suddenly became visible to her inner senses. Speak the words, River instructed. Say, I, Vera Ashwood, reject the pack of my birth. I sever the bonds of blood and obligation. I walk away from those who never valued me. By my will and the moon's witness, I am free. Vera took a deep breath. This was it. The point of no return. I, Vera Ashwood, reject the pack of my birth. Her voice rang clear through the cavern. I sever the bonds of blood and obligation. I walk away from those who never valued me. By my will and the moon's witness, I am free. The bond in her blood pulled taut, resisting. It hurt like something was trying to claw its way out of her chest. Vera gasped, but kept standing. River handed her the knife. Your blood, freely given to seal the severance. Vera dragged the blade across her palm. Blood welled up, bright red and powerful with magic. She let it drip into the bowl of smoking herbs. The moment her blood hit the mixture, the cavern exploded with light. The bond snapped. Vera screamed as the connection to her father, her mother, Aurora, everything that tied her to the Ashwood pack tore away like a piece of her soul being ripped out. It hurt more than she'd imagined, a pain that went beyond physical into something primal and devastating. But then it was over, and she felt light, free, untethered from expectations and disappointments and all the weight she'd carried her entire life. It's done, River said softly. You're no longer Ashwood pack. Vera swayed on her feet, and Kieran caught her. His arms were warm and steady around her. Now for the second part, he said. He turned to address the pack, his voice carrying the weight of alpha command. Vera has severed her ties to her birth pack. She stands before us packless and seeking sanctuary. As alpha of this pack, I offer her a choice. Join us not as a refugee, but as a full member, with all the rights, protections, and responsibilities that entails. He looked down at Vera, his golden eyes soft. What do you say, Vera? Will you join our pack? Not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you choose us? Through her exhaustion and pain, Vera smiled. Because this choice, this moment, was everything she'd been running toward without knowing it. Yes, she said. I choose you. All of you. I choose this pack. Kieran's smile was brilliant. He bit his own palm, letting his blood well up, then pressed it against Vera's bleeding hand. Their blood mingled, and Vera felt a new bond snap into place, this one warm and welcoming, built on choice rather than obligation. Then by blood and will, by moon and witness, I name you pack, Kieran declared. Vera, no surname needed, member of the feral pack, welcome home. The pack erupted in howls, joyous and triumphant. The sound echoed through the cavern and out into the night. A declaration to anyone listening. She's ours now. And we protect our own. Vera felt tears streaming down her face. But for once they were tears of joy. She was home. Finally. Truly home. And as Kieran pulled her into a tight embrace, his pack bonds settling warm and strong around her heart, Vera knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never go back. Whatever came next, whatever her father tried, whatever the pack system threw at them, she would face it with her new family beside her. And that made her stronger than she'd ever been as an Ashwood. Chapter 6. The Confrontation. The blood bond severance worked, but not without consequences. Vera woke the next morning to the sound of angry shouting outside the den. Her head throbbed from the ritual, and her hand where she'd cut herself ached despite River's healing salve, but the voices were too urgent to ignore. She stumbled out to find the entire pack gathered at the valley entrance. Kieran stood at the front, arms crossed, face carved from stone, and beyond the invisible line of the wards, her father, Alpha Richard Ashwood, looked like fury incarnate. His steel-gray eyes blazed with rage, his massive frame practically vibrating with barely contained violence. Behind him stood the search party, 23 wolves, all in fighting stance, and beside her father, a wizened old woman with milky white eyes and gnarled hands covered in ritual scars, the shaman. "I know you're in there, Vera." Richard's voice boomed across the valley, amplified somehow to carry past the wards. "I can smell your cowardice from here. Come out and face what you've done." Vera's legs nearly gave out. Even severed from the blood bond, her father's alpha command still carried weight, years of conditioning, making her want to obey, to submit, to make herself small and apologize. But then Kieran's hand found hers, warm and grounding. His pack bond pulsed with steady reassurance. "You don't owe him anything. You're safe. I've got you. Don't respond," Kieran murmured. "He's trying to provoke a reaction." "How did he get this close?" Sage demanded, appearing beside them. "The wards should have kept them miles away." The old shaman smiled, revealing blackened teeth. "Blood calls to blood, alpha of strays. The girl's severance ritual? It lit up the valley like a beacon. We followed the magic signature right to your doorstep." Her voice was raspy, ancient. "She can run from her pack, but she cannot run from what she is." "Vera is not the girl," Kieran called back, his voice carrying alpha authority that made even some of Richard's wolves flinch. "She has a name, and she's under my protection now, by her own choice. She severed ties to your pack legally and ritually. You have no claim on her." Richard's laugh was harsh. "Legal? You speak of pack law while harboring runaways and rejects? You're nothing but a collection of failures playing at being wolves. You have no authority here." "Neither do you," Sage shot back. "This is neutral territory, unclaimed land. You're the ones trespassing." "Unclaimed land within my territory's borders," Richard countered. "Everything within 50 miles of Ashwood Lodge belongs to me by right of conquest and heritage. You're squatting on my land, feral. And you're keeping my daughter from fulfilling her obligations. I'm not your daughter anymore." The words burst from Vera before she could stop them. She stepped forward, ignoring Kieran's warning grip on her arm. "I severed the bond. I rejected the pack. I'm not an Ashwood." Richard's eyes found hers across the divide, and the hatred there made her flinch. "You're an embarrassment is what you are. Do you have any idea what you've cost us?" Damon Blackthorne withdrew his courtship offer to Aurora. "Said our family lacked honor and control. Your sister's future destroyed because of your selfishness." "My selfishness?" Vera's voice rose. "You were going to sell me to a stranger. Force me into a mating with someone I'd never met. Just to strengthen an alliance. How is refusing that selfish?" "Because that's what Omegas do," Richard roared. "They serve the pack. They sacrifice for the greater good. But you've always been defective, weak, just like your grandmother, who filled your head with ridiculous notions of choice and freedom." The mention of her grandmother made something crack in Vera's chest. "Don't you dare speak about her. She was worth 10 of you. She was a fool who died alone because she rejected her mate bond." Richard spat. "Just like you're going to die alone, Vera. Packless, mateless, worthless. Is that really the future you want?" "It's better than being your property," Vera shouted back, tears streaming down her face. "At least when I die, I'll die free. I'll die as myself, not as some alpha's broodmare or political tool." Richard's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little." He lunged forward, hitting the ward line with enough force to make the air shimmer and crack. The wards held, but barely. Vera could see the magic straining, warping under the pressure of Richard's alpha aura. "The wards won't hold much longer," the shaman said conversationally. "I've been working on them all night, and that little blood ritual weakened them further. Another hour, maybe 2, and they'll shatter like glass." She smiled at Kieran. "Then what will you do, alpha of strays? Fight an alpha with twice your experience and 3 times your numbers?" "If I have to," Kieran replied, his voice deadly calm. "Every wolf in my pack would rather die fighting than watch one of our own be dragged back into slavery." "Slavery?" Richard laughed bitterly. Is that what she told you? Poor little Vera, so oppressed in her comfortable room, with food and shelter and the Ashwood name protecting her. She was privileged beyond measure, and she threw it away for… What? To live in a cave with a bunch of rejects? To live with people who actually value her, Kieran shot back. People who see her as a person, not a commodity. You call it privilege, but I call it a prison. She wasn't living, she was surviving, and barely. You don't know anything about my family. I know you hit her, Kieran interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous. I know her sister struck her in front of a crowd and you did nothing to defend her. I know you locked her in her room and planned to ship her off at dawn without even letting her say goodbye. I know you made her feel worthless every single day of her life. He stepped forward, right up to the ward line. So don't stand there and lecture me about family, Alpha Ashwood. You don't deserve that title, not when it comes to her. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's face had gone pale with fury, but underneath, Vera saw something else: surprise. Like he'd genuinely never considered that his treatment of her might be wrong. Like the idea that an Omega deserved respect was so foreign it didn't compute. You've been corrupted by their propaganda, Richard finally said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. These ferals, they fill your head with lies about equality and choice. But the pack system exists for a reason, Vera. Without hierarchy, without order, we're just animals. Savage, uncontrolled. We're not savage, River called out, stepping up beside Kieran. We're free. There's a difference, says the Omega, standing beside an Alpha without permission, one of Richard's wolves sneered. In a real pack, you'd be punished for that presumption. In a real pack, Omegas wouldn't need permission to stand wherever we want, River replied coolly. We're not children or possessions. We're people. The Ashwood wolves shifted uncomfortably. Vera could see some of them, particularly the younger ones, looking uncertain, like maybe they'd never questioned the system before, but these words were planting seeds of doubt. Richard saw it too. His expression hardened. Enough talk. Shaman, bring down the wards, now. The old woman raised her hands and began chanting in that ancient tongue. The air around the valley shimmered and groaned, reality itself bending under her magic. Brace yourselves, Sage shouted. Kieran, if those wards fall… I know, Kieran cut her off. He turned to face his pack. Fighting positions. Protect the young ones and the injured first. No one engages unless they breach the valley. We defend, we don't attack. Understood. The pack shifted, warriors moving to the front, while those less capable of fighting moved toward the den. Vera found herself being pushed back with them, but she resisted. I need to fight, she said. This is my fault. This isn't about fault, Kieran said firmly. And you're not ready for a full pack battle, Vera. You've had 1 week of training. Please go with River and the others. Help protect the den. But, please. The desperation in Kieran's eyes broke through her protests. I can't lead and worry about you at the same time. Help River. That's how you can help me. Vera wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She'd only be a liability in a real fight. So she nodded, and let River pull her back toward the den. If you believe Vera deserves to be protected like this, subscribe. Because people like Vera need witnesses who won't look away when things get hard. Don't abandon her story now. Comment. What would you do in Kieran's position? Fight or find another way? The shaman's chanting reached a crescendo. The wards screamed an audible, agonizing sound like metal tearing. Cracks appeared in the invisible barrier, spreading like a spiderweb. They're breaking through, Ghost shouted. The wards shattered. The explosion of released magic knocked several wolves off their feet. Vera felt the protective blanket she'd helped weave disintegrate, leaving the valley exposed and vulnerable. Richard smiled a cold, triumphant expression. There. Now let's settle this properly. Vera, you have one chance, come with us willingly, and I'll show mercy to your new friends. Refuse and I'll challenge this upstart alpha to a dominance fight. When I win, I'll take you anyway, and burn this valley to the ground. Don't do it, Vera, Sage called out. He's bluffing. But Vera could see that Richard wasn't bluffing. His hand was already shifting, claws extending. He was preparing for a challenge fight, the sacred ritual, where alphas fought to the death or submission to establish dominance. If Kieran fought her father and lost, he'd die. Or worse, he'd be forced to submit, to acknowledge Richard's authority. The entire pack would fall under Ashwood rule, all because of her. "Kieran," Richard called out, his voice carrying the weight of alpha challenge. "Do you accept this Omega as your pack member? Do you claim responsibility for her actions and her debts?" It was a trap. If Kieran said yes, he'd be legally responsible for Vera's debt to her birth pack, the unfulfilled mating contract, the broken alliance. If he said no, he'd be admitting Vera wasn't truly pack, which would invalidate her protection. Either way, Richard won. Kieran's jaw clenched. Vera could see him calculating options, looking for a way out that didn't end in bloodshed. "I claim her," Kieran finally said. "Vera is my pack, and I'm responsible for her well-being. But she owes you nothing, Ashwood. She's not property to be returned." "Then you accept her debts as your own?" "I accept that she's a person who made her own choices." "Yes or no, Farrell?" Richard interrupted. "Do you accept responsibility for an Omega who broke a formal mating contract? In pack law, that requires compensation or combat. Choose." The assembled wolves, both packs, fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Richard had maneuvered Kieran into an impossible position. Vera couldn't breathe. She'd ruined everything. Her bid for freedom had put everyone she cared about in danger. Kieran straightened, his golden eyes blazing with determination, and something else, something that looked almost like resignation. "I choose. I challenge you for her." "One." The voice came from behind Richard's lines. A figure stepped forward, tall and lean with dark hair, and those devastating ice-blue eyes that Vera had only seen once before at the Harvest Moon Festival. Damon Blackthorne, alpha of the most powerful pack in the northern region, had just arrived, and he was looking directly at Vera. "This Omega," Damon continued, his voice smooth and commanding, "interests me. I'll take over the mating contract from the Crescent Valley pack. I'll fulfill the debt she supposedly owes, but only if she comes with me willingly." Richard's face went through a series of expressions: shock, calculation, reluctant satisfaction. "Damon, I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't invited." Damon's cold blue eyes didn't leave Vera. "But I've been watching this situation with interest. An Omega brave enough to run from a forced mating? That's rare. Valuable, even." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm willing to pay her bride price, Richard. Enough to compensate for your lost alliance and then some. And I'm willing to challenge this feral alpha for custody rights." He looked at Kieran. "Unless you'd rather avoid bloodshed and simply hand her over?" Kieran's expression was murderous. "She's not mine to hand over. She's a free person who makes her own choices." "How progressive," Damon said dryly. "But in pack law, she's an Omega who broke a contract. That makes her forfeit. I'm offering to take over that contract legally, properly, with full compensation to all injured parties. It's the cleanest solution." He finally addressed Vera directly. "What do you say, little Omega? Come with me willingly. Be my mate. I'll give you everything: status, protection, luxury. You'll be Luna of the most powerful pack in the region. All you have to do is choose me over." He gestured dismissively at the valley. "This." Vera's mind reeled. Damon Blackthorne, the alpha every she-wolf dreamed of, was offering to mate her, to make her Luna. It was more than she'd ever hoped for as an Ashwood daughter, but it was still a cage. Beautiful, luxurious, powerful, but a cage nonetheless. She'd still be property, still be controlled, still be valued only for her designation and what she could provide to a pack alliance. "No," Vera said, her voice shaking but clear. "I refuse." Damon's eyebrows rose. "You refuse me? Do you understand what I'm offering?" "I understand perfectly. And I don't want it." Vera lifted her chin. "I'm not for sale. Not to you, not to my father, not to anyone. I'm staying here, with my pack, where I'm valued for who I am, not what I can provide." "Then you're a fool," Damon said coldly. "And you're dooming this entire pack to destruction, because I tried to do this the easy way." He turned to Kieran. "I, Damon Blackthorne, alpha of the Blackthorne pack, formally challenge you for dominance and custody of the Omega Vera. Refuse and be branded a coward. Accept and die. Choose. The valley fell silent. Vera's heart stopped. This was it. The moment where everything fell apart. Kieran looked at her, and in his golden eyes she saw everything: apology, determination, and something deeper. Something that made her chest ache with emotions she wasn't ready to name. I accept your challenge, Kieran said quietly. For Vera's freedom, for her choice. I accept. Chapter 7. The Challenge. The challenge circle was drawn in ash and salt, ancient symbols marking neutral ground where alphas fought for dominance. It was sacred space, governed by laws older than the modern pack system. Once inside the circle, there were no allies, no pack bonds, no outside interference. Just two alphas, and the primal law of survival. Kieran stripped off his shirt, his scarred torso catching the afternoon light. He looked powerful, all lean muscle and controlled strength. But Damon was bigger, broader, with the kind of presence that made other alphas instinctively bow their heads. This was a death sentence dressed up as honor. Kieran, don't do this. Vera pleaded, grabbing his arm before he could step into the circle. Please. I'll go with Damon. I'll do whatever he wants. Just don't. No. Kieran's voice was gentle but immovable. He cupped her face with both hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me, Vera. If I let you sacrifice yourself now, everything you've fought for means nothing. Your freedom, your choice, your courage, all of it erased, because you let fear make your decisions. But you could die? Then I die protecting something that matters. His thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. You matter, Vera. Your right to choose matters. And I'd rather die proving that, than live knowing I stood by and let you be taken. That's not fair, Vera whispered, her voice breaking. You can't put that on me. If you die, it'll be my fault. If I die, it'll be because the pack system is broken and needs wolves willing to fight it. Kieran's golden eyes were fierce. Stop blaming yourself for other people's cruelty. Your father chose to hunt you. Damon chose to challenge me. Those are their choices, not yours. Your only choice was to be free. And that's never wrong. He kissed her forehead, brief and achingly tender, then stepped away before she could stop him. Kieran, wait. River pushed through the crowd, carrying a small clay pot. At least take this. It's a stimulant paste, rub it on your pressure points. It'll sharpen your reflexes, dull pain reception. That's cheating, one of Richard's wolves protested. It's herbal medicine, not magic, River shot back. Perfectly legal in challenge fights. Or are you afraid your precious Blackthorn Alpha needs advantages? Damon, who'd been observing this exchange with cold amusement, smiled. Let him have his herbs. It won't matter. Kieran took the paste and quickly applied it to his temples, wrists, and neck. Vera could smell the sharp, medicinal scent, wolfsbane mixed with something else, something that made her wolf whimper with worry. The rules are simple, the old shaman croaked, stepping forward to officiate. She might be loyal to Richard, but challenge law was sacred even to her. Fight until submission or death. No pack interference. No weapons beyond tooth and claw. No magic beyond what lives in your blood. The winner takes custody of the contested party, and the loser's pack submits to the winner's authority. Her milky eyes turned to Kieran. Do you understand, Alpha? If you lose, your entire pack becomes forfeit. Vera's stomach dropped. She hadn't known that. If Kieran lost, everyone, Sage, River, Frost, all the wolves who'd welcomed her would be forced under Damon's or Richard's control. Their freedom, their choice, everything they'd built, gone. I understand, Kieran said calmly. Too calmly. And you, Alpha Blackthorn? I understand perfectly, Damon replied, rolling his shoulders. His ice-blue eyes never left Kieran. Shall we begin? Wait. Sage pushed forward. Kieran, you don't have to do this alone. Challenge law allows for champions. Let me fight in your place. No. Kieran's voice carried alpha command, and Sage flinched despite herself. This is my challenge to accept, my pack to protect. I won't hide behind my second. Then at least shift. Sage pleaded. Fight in wolf form where you're strongest. He won't, Damon interrupted, smiling coldly. Because he knows I'm stronger in wolf form. His only chance is to stay human, where technique might overcome raw power. He began to strip, unself-conscious about the dozens of watching eyes. But I'm not giving him that advantage. Damon's body rippled and changed. Bones cracked and reformed, muscle and sinew rearranging themselves with brutal efficiency. Within seconds, a massive wolf stood where the man had been easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with black fur shot through with silver and those same ice-blue eyes glowing with predatory intelligence. He was enormous, beautiful, terrifying. Kieran looked at that monster and sighed. Well, shit. Then he shifted too. Vera had seen Kieran's wolf form before, but not like this, not coiled for battle, not radiating alpha dominance so thick it made the air shimmer. His black fur seemed to absorb light, and his golden eyes burned like molten metal. He was smaller than Damon, but he moved like liquid shadow, all grace and controlled power. The shaman raised her gnarled hand. Let the challenge begin. She dropped her arm. Damon struck first, a blur of black and silver fur, launching across the circle with terrifying speed. Kieran dodged, but barely. Damon's claws raked across his shoulder, drawing first blood. The watching wolves erupted in shouts, Richard's pack cheering for Damon, Kieran's pack screaming encouragement. But inside the circle, the two alphas ignored everything except each other. Damon pressed his advantage, using his size to try to pin Kieran against the circle's edge. But Kieran was faster, ducking under the larger wolf's guard and snapping at his exposed throat. His teeth found purchase, tearing through fur and skin. Damon yelped and threw himself backward, blood streaming from his neck. The wound wasn't fatal, but it was deep. Yes, River shouted beside Vera. He's faster, he can do this. But Vera saw what River didn't. Damon's eyes were calculating, analytical. He wasn't angry about being injured. He was learning, adjusting his strategy. The next exchange was brutal. Damon stopped trying to overpower Kieran and instead matched his speed, becoming a whirlwind of teeth and claws. They moved so fast, Vera could barely track them, a tornado of black fur and violence, blood spattering the ash circle. Kieran got in several good hits, his smaller size allowing him to slip under Damon's guard. But Damon's strikes, when they landed, were devastating. One swipe of his massive paw sent Kieran tumbling, ribs cracking audibly. Kieran struggled to his feet, favoring his left side. Blood matted his fur, but his eyes were still fierce, still fighting. Get up, Vera prayed. Please get up. Damon circled, taking his time now. He knew he had the advantage. Submit, his growl seemed to say. Submit and save yourself. Kieran's response was to lunge forward, jaws snapping for Damon's throat again. But this time, Damon was ready. He twisted, catching Kieran's momentum and using it against him. The smaller wolf went flying, slamming into the ground hard enough to crack stone. He didn't get up immediately. Kieran, Sage screamed. Damon padded forward, taking his time. Blood dripped from multiple wounds. But he was still strong, still steady. He placed one massive paw on Kieran's chest, a gesture of dominance. Of victory. Submit, his body language demanded. It's over. For a moment, Vera thought Kieran would. His wolf form was battered, ribs broken, one eye swollen shut. He'd fought bravely, but Damon was simply too strong, too experienced. But then Kieran's golden eyes met Vera's across the circle, and something shifted. Kieran's jaws clamped down on Damon's paw, the one pinning him. He bit down with every ounce of strength he had left, teeth crushing through bone and tendon. Damon howled in pain and jerked back. And in that moment of distraction, Kieran surged upward. He shifted mid-leap, a dangerous, nearly impossible maneuver that left him vulnerable for a split second, and his human hands found Damon's throat. I don't submit, Kieran snarled, his voice raw and ragged. Not to you, not for her, never. His thumbs pressed into Damon's windpipe. The larger wolf thrashed, trying to throw him off, but Kieran held on with desperate strength. They crashed to the ground in a tangle of fur and flesh, rolling across the circle. Damon shifted back to human form, gasping for air. You're insane. Probably, Kieran agreed. blood streaming down his face. But I'm not giving up. They grappled like that, both in human form now, trading brutal punches and holds. Kieran was the better technical fighter, but Damon had strength and endurance. Every time Kieran got an advantage, Damon powered through it, back and forth, neither giving ground. The fight stretched on 5 minutes, 10, 15. Both alphas were bleeding from dozens of wounds, exhausted, running on pure willpower and stubborn pride. "Just submit," Damon roared, slamming Kieran into the ground. "I'll let you live if you submit. Go to hell." Kieran spat blood and grinned through broken teeth. "You want my pack? My wolves? Vera, you're going to have to kill me, and even then, I'll haunt you." Damon's face twisted with frustration, and was that respect? "You're throwing your life away for an Omega you've known for a week. Why?" "Because she deserves better." Kieran's voice was quiet now, exhausted but certain. "Because every wolf deserves to choose their own path. Because the pack system is broken and someone has to stand against it, even if it's futile, even if it's stupid." He coughed. More blood. "And because I love her." The world stopped. Vera's heart stuttered in her chest. Had she heard that right? Had Kieran just said, "You love her?" Damon looked genuinely shocked. "You're dying for love? That's..." He shook his head, something complicated passing across his face. "That's idiotic." "Probably," Kieran agreed. "But I've never claimed to be smart." Damon stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stepped back. "What are you doing?" Richard demanded from outside the circle. "Finish him." But Damon ignored him. He looked at Vera, really looked at her, and something in his ice-blue eyes softened. "You rejected me without hesitation. Turned down everything I offered without a second thought. I couldn't understand why I've never been rejected before. But now I see." He glanced at Kieran. "You already chose. Not a pack or status or power. You chose him." Vera's throat was too tight to speak, so she just nodded. Damon smiled, a real smile this time, without the cold edge. "Then I'm an idiot for trying to take you from that." He raised his voice to address the shaman. "I submit. The challenge is over. Kieran wins." The assembled wolves erupted in chaos. "You can't submit," Richard roared. "You were winning." "I can do whatever I want," Damon replied coolly, shifting back to human form and walking out of the circle with as much dignity as a naked, bleeding man could muster. "The challenge was for her custody, and I've decided I don't want it. She belongs with someone who loves her, not with someone who sees her as a valuable acquisition." He paused beside Vera. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about the festival. About Aurora. Your father asked me to court her, but I could never go through with it. She's beautiful but empty, all surface, no substance. You, on the other hand," he smiled slightly, "you're the kind of wolf who starts revolutions. Hold on to that." Then he walked past her, past the stunned Ashwood wolves, and disappeared into the forest without another word. Richard stared after him, face purple with rage. This is unacceptable. The challenge wasn't finished. He can't just..." "He submitted," the shaman interrupted, her ancient voice carrying authority. "By challenge law, the victor has been decided. Alpha Kieran retains custody of the Omega Vera. The debt is satisfied." She looked at Richard with those milky eyes. "Your claim is void, Ashwood. You have no legal standing here anymore. I am her father." "You were her father," the shaman corrected. "She severed the bond. She rejected the pack. And now the challenge has ended in her favor. By every law we hold sacred, she's free." The old woman smiled, revealing blackened teeth. "Go home, Richard. You've lost." For a moment, Vera thought her father might attack anyway, law be damned. His entire body trembled with barely contained violence. But then one of his wolves, a younger beta, spoke up quietly. "Alpha, maybe we should go. This isn't worth starting a war over." "Not worth," Richard whirled on him. "She's my daughter, my blood. She's a person who chose to leave." Another wolf said, this one female. "And we all saw why. Saw how you talked about her, treated her like property." The she-wolf's eyes were sad. "Maybe. Maybe she had good reason to run. Alpha. Richard's face went through a series of expressions: rage, betrayal, and finally, something that might have been shame. But it hardened almost immediately into cold disdain. Fine, he bit out. Keep her. Keep the defective Omega who brought nothing but shame to our pack. But know this, Vera. He locked eyes with her across the circle. You're dead to me, dead to the Ashwood pack. If you ever set foot on our territory again, you'll be treated as a rogue and killed on sight. You've made your choice. Now live with it. He turned and stalked away, his wolves following. Some of them looked back at Vera with expressions ranging from pity to curiosity to something that might have been envy. They disappeared into the forest, leaving only silence behind. Vera stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Her father was gone. Damon had submitted. Kieran had won. Kieran. She whirled around to find him collapsed at the edge of the circle, Sage and River already working to stabilize him. His face was a mask of blood and bruises, his breathing shallow and labored. Kieran. Vera ran to him, dropping to her knees beside his broken body. Don't you dare die. Don't you dare die after saying something like that and not giving me a chance to respond. His golden eyes cracked open, focusing on her with difficulty. Did we win? You won, you absolute idiot, Vera sobbed, cradling his face. You almost died, but you won. Good. His smile was bloody but genuine. Worth it. You said you loved me. I know. Terrible timing. Sorry. He coughed, wincing. But it's true. I love you, Vera. Have since you stumbled into our territory looking terrified but still standing. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I'm not brave, Vera whispered. I'm just desperate. Same thing sometimes. His hand found hers, grip weak but determined. Did you mean what you said? About staying? About choosing us? I meant every word. Vera pressed her forehead to his. I choose you, Kieran. I choose this pack. I choose freedom and family and everything you've given me. I choose you, even though I'm broken and bleeding and probably have at least 3 cracked ribs. Especially then. Vera laughed through her tears. Someone has to take care of you. And apparently I'm qualified. River's the healer, Kieran pointed out weakly. River can handle the medical stuff. I'll handle everything else. Vera kissed him soft and careful, tasting blood and salt and victory. Now shut up and let them heal you before I lose you for real. Kieran smiled, and finally let his eyes close. Yes, ma'am. Chapter 8. Healing and Truth. Kieran spent 3 days hovering between consciousness and delirium. River worked tirelessly, using every herb and healing technique he knew to mend the Alpha's broken body. The injuries were extensive: 4 cracked ribs, a fractured left arm, internal bleeding, and dozens of lacerations that required careful stitching. Without modern medicine, River had to rely on ancient remedies passed down through generations of Omega healers. And Vera refused to leave his side. She sat beside Kieran's makeshift bed in his private chamber, holding his hand and wiping the fever sweat from his brow. When he thrashed in his sleep, reliving the fight, she would whisper soothing words until he calmed. When River changed his bandages, and Kieran gritted his teeth against the pain, Vera would let him squeeze her hand until her bones creaked. You should rest, Sage said, on the second day, appearing in the doorway with a bowl of broth. You haven't slept since the challenge. Kieran would kill me if I let you collapse from exhaustion. I'm fine, Vera insisted, though her eyes were gritty and her body ached. You're not fine. You're running on anxiety and guilt. Sage set the bowl down and crouched beside her. Vera, what happened wasn't your fault. You know that, right? He almost died because of me. He almost died because he chose to fight for something that mattered to him. That's different. Sage's amber eyes were kind but firm. Kieran's been waiting his whole life for a cause worth fighting for. You gave him that. Don't diminish his choice by blaming yourself. Vera looked at Kieran's battered face, the bruises slowly fading from purple to yellow-green. What if he regrets it? When he wakes up and realizes what he said, he won't regret it. Sage smiled. That man has been half in love with you since you first showed up here. The rest of us could see it even if you two were oblivious. That's ridiculous. He barely knows me. He knows the important parts. Your courage, your compassion, your strength. The rest is just details you learn along the way. Sage stood, stretching. Now, eat the broth and get some sleep. That's an order from your second alpha. Kieran needs you healthy when he wakes up, not collapsing from exhaustion. Reluctantly, Vera ate and allowed herself to doze, still holding Kieran's hand, still ready to wake at the slightest change in his breathing. She dreamed of golden eyes and blood-soaked ash circles, and her father's voice telling her she was dead to him. But underneath the nightmares, there was warmth pack bonds humming like a lullaby, the steady presence of wolves who'd chosen her, who'd fought for her right to exist freely. When she woke, it was to find Kieran watching her. His golden eyes were clear now, fever bright but conscious. His lips quirked in a small smile. You snore. Vera sat up so fast she nearly fell off her stool. You're awake. How do you feel? Should I get River? Are you in pain? I'm fine. Sore but fine. Kieran's voice was rough from disuse. How long was I out? 3 days. Vera couldn't help herself. She reached out and cupped his face, needing to confirm he was really okay. You scared us. You scared me. Sorry. He turned his head to kiss her palm. But I'd do it again. In a heartbeat. Please don't. My heart can't take another challenge fight. Vera tried to pull her hand away, suddenly self-conscious, but Kieran held it gently. Vera. His voice was serious now. I meant what I said. During the fight. I wasn't delirious or caught up in the moment. I love you. Vera's breath caught. Hearing it again, with him fully conscious, and looking at her with such raw honesty, was overwhelming. You don't have to say it back. Kieran continued quickly. I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other in some ways. But I needed you to know. Needed you to understand why I fought. It wasn't just about principle or protecting Pack. It was about you. Specifically you. Why? The word came out barely above a whisper. Why me? I'm broken, damaged. I come with more baggage than any wolf should have to carry. You're not broken, Kieran said fiercely. You're healing. There's a difference. And as for baggage, everyone here has it. That's what makes us Pack. We don't run from each other's scars. We help carry them. He struggled to sit up, wincing. And Vera helped adjust the furs supporting his back. I fell in love with you the moment you stood in this valley surrounded by my wolves and refused to be afraid, Kieran said. You were terrified, I could smell it, but you didn't run, didn't submit. You looked at me with those defiant eyes and demanded to know why we were helping you, like you'd never experienced kindness without strings attached. His thumb traced circles on her hand. And then you stayed. You learned to hunt and fight and be part of something bigger than yourself. You challenged every belief you'd been raised with and chose to become someone new. How could I not fall in love with that? Tears streamed down Vera's face. I don't know how to do this. No one's ever. I know. Kieran's smile was gentle. And I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. If you need time, take it. If you want to just be friends, I'll accept that. If you want to explore this thing between us, I'm here. No pressure, no expectations. Just honesty. Vera thought about the past 2 weeks. How she'd felt safe for the first time in her life. How Kieran had never demanded anything from her. Never made her feel small or inadequate. How he'd risked everything, his life, his Pack's freedom, just to protect her right to choose. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm terrified of being vulnerable again, of trusting someone with my heart when everyone I've ever trusted has hurt me. That's fair, Kieran said. And I can't promise I'll never hurt you. People hurt each other sometimes, even when they love each other. But I can promise I'll never do it on purpose. Never use your love as a weapon. Never make you feel less than what you are. Vera looked at this man, this alpha who'd rejected his own system, who'd built something beautiful from society's rejects, who'd nearly died defending her freedom, and she realized something that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. She was falling in love with him too. Maybe she had been since that first night, when he'd looked at her with golden eyes and offered sanctuary without conditions. I think I love you too, Vera whispered. I'm not completely sure because I don't know what love is supposed to feel like. But when I look at you, I feel safe. And when you were fighting Damon, I felt like my heart was being ripped out. And right now, sitting here with you alive and awake, I feel like I can finally breathe again. So if that's love, then yes, I love you." Kieran's smile was radiant despite his battered face. "That's definitely love. So what do we do now?" "Now?" Kieran laughed softly. "Now we take it slow. Get to know each other properly. Let you heal from everything you've been through. Build something real and solid instead of rushed and desperate." He paused. "Unless you want to rush and be desperate. I'm flexible." Vera laughed, a real, genuine laugh that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Slow sounds good. I think I need slow." "Slow it is." Kieran tugged her hand gently. "Come here." Vera carefully climbed onto the bed beside him, mindful of his injuries. He wrapped his good arm around her and pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "This is nice," she murmured. "This is perfect," Kieran corrected. They stayed like that until River appeared to check on his patient, took one look at them curled together, and smiled knowingly. "Well, I suppose cuddling is therapeutic," River said dryly. "But Kieran, you need to eat something more substantial than Vera's affection. I've got bone broth and some of that venison from the hunt. Think you can keep it down?" "I'll try," Kieran said, "but only if Vera helps me. My arm's broken, remember?" River rolled his eyes. "Your right arm is broken. You're left-handed." "Am I? I forget." "You're insufferable when you're in love," River informed him, but his warm eyes were dancing with amusement. "Fine. Vera can feed you like the helpless alpha you're pretending to be, but tomorrow you start physical therapy, and I promise it won't be nearly as enjoyable." Over the next few days, Kieran healed rapidly werewolf constitution, combined with River's expertise and Vera's constant care. Soon he was able to walk around the den, though he tired easily and his ribs still ached. The pack welcomed him back with joy and relief. Frost prepared his favorite meals. Storm organized patrols to ensure Richard's wolves didn't try anything. Ghost reported that the Ashwood pack had indeed retreated to their territory and showed no signs of returning. "We're safe," Sage announced at the evening gathering 5 days after the challenge. "The threat has passed. We can return to normal life." The pack erupted in cheers and howls of celebration. Someone broke out fermented berry wine that they'd been saving for a special occasion, and soon the den was filled with music and laughter. Vera found herself pulled into a dance by Storm, who, despite his aggressive tendencies, was surprisingly good at following the rhythm of the drums. Then River claimed her for a slower song, and then Frost insisted on teaching her an old traditional dance from her grandmother's pack. She was breathless and laughing when Kieran finally cut in. "May I?" he asked, offering his good hand. "You should be resting," Vera said, even as she took his hand. "I've been resting for days. I'm allowed one dance with my—" He paused. "With you." "With your what?" Vera asked, curious about what he'd almost said. "I was going to say mate, but we haven't discussed that yet, and I didn't want to presume." "Mate?" Vera's heart skipped. "You want me as your mate?" "Eventually, yes, if you want that too. But there's no rush, no pressure. We can—" Vera kissed him, cutting off his nervous rambling. It was deeper than their first kiss, more certain. When she pulled back, Kieran looked dazed. "Yes," Vera said simply. "Eventually, when we're both ready, yes. I want that." Kieran's smile was brilliant. He pulled her close, swaying to the music despite his healing injuries. "You keep surprising me." "Good. I'd hate to be predictable." They danced until Kieran's strength gave out, and River ordered him back to bed with stern warnings about reopening wounds. But even as Vera helped him to his chamber, she felt lighter than she had in years. This was her life now. Her choice. Her freedom. And it was beautiful. Later that night, after the celebration died down, and most of the pack had retired to their chambers, Vera stood at the valley entrance, staring out into the darkness. She couldn't see her old territory from here, but she knew it was out there, the Ashwood Lodge where she'd grown up feeling worthless. "Regrets?" Sage's voice made her jump. The silver-haired woman appeared beside her, also looking out into the night. "No," Vera said honestly. "I'm just processing." A month ago I was locked in a tiny room, waiting to be sold off like property. Now I'm here, free, in love, part of a real pack. It doesn't feel real. It's real, Sage assured her. And you earned it, every bit of it. She was quiet for a moment. Your father might come back. You know, not now, maybe not for years. But men like Richard don't forget perceived slights. And in his mind, you humiliated him. I know, Vera said. Part of me will always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to show up and try to drag me back. But I can't live in fear. That's just another kind of cage. Smart woman. Sage smiled. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. You're good for Kieran. Good for all of us, really. You remind us what we're fighting for. What are we fighting for? The right to exist on our own terms. To love who we choose, live how we want, be who we're meant to be without anyone's permission. Sage's amber eyes glowed in the moonlight. That's worth everything. And you proved it by walking away from comfort and status to live in a cave with a bunch of ferals. Vera laughed. When you put it that way, it does sound insane. The best decisions usually do. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two women who'd chosen freedom over security, community over blood, family, truth over comfortable lies. Thank you, Vera said quietly, for accepting me, for teaching me to fight, for being my friend. That's what Pack does, Sage replied. We take care of our own, always. As Vera made her way back to her chamber, passing sleeping wolves curled together in piles of communal warmth, seeing the peace on their faces, she felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like belonging. She was home. Finally, truly home. And tomorrow, she'd wake up and continue building the life she'd chosen, learning new skills, growing stronger, loving Kieran, and being loved in return, living freely. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges ahead, her father's potential revenge, the pack system's continued opposition, the daily struggles of survival in the wilderness, but she'd face them with wolves at her back who actually cared about her, with a man who loved her for who she was, not what she could provide, with the freedom to choose her own path, and that made everything worth it. Chapter 9. The Revelation. Winter came to the mountains like a predator, silent, brutal, and absolute. 2 months had passed since the challenge fight, and the valley had transformed into a crystalline wonderland of snow and ice. The pack adapted as they always did, relying on stored provisions and group hunts when the weather permitted. The den became a warm refuge where wolves pressed close for heat, their pack bonds growing stronger through shared hardship. Vera had never been happier. She'd grown into her role in the pack, not just as Kieran's mate-to-be, but as a valued member in her own right. She helped River with healing work, learning which herbs treated what ailments. She trained daily with Sage, her archery improving until she could hit targets even Storm struggled with. She organized supply storage with Frost, ensuring nothing was wasted. And every night, she fell asleep beside Kieran in his chamber, wrapped in furs and his arms, feeling safer than she'd ever imagined possible. But tonight, something felt wrong. Vera woke suddenly, her wolf stirring with unease. Beside her, Kieran slept peacefully, his breathing deep and even. The den was quiet, too quiet. Even the usual sounds of sleeping wolves seemed muted, distant. She slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Kieran. He'd been working himself too hard lately, leading extended hunting parties to stock up before the worst of winter hit. He needed rest. Vera padded barefoot through the den, her omega senses seeking the source of her discomfort. Everything appeared normal. The fire burned low in the main cavern. Wolves slept in their chambers. The entrance was secure, but something was wrong. She could feel it like a splinter under her skin. Can't sleep? Vera jumped. Ghost materialized from the shadows near the entrance, her silver-streaked hair catching the firelight. The scout had been on night watch. Just restless, Vera said. Everything okay out there? Define, okay. Ghost's expression was troubled. Come with me. There's something you should see. They climbed to the valley's highest point, a rocky outcropping that gave a view of the surrounding mountains. The moon was nearly full, painting everything in shades of silver and blue. Beautiful and cold. Ghost pointed toward the eastern horizon. There. See it? Vera squinted, then felt her blood run cold. Smoke. Dozens of thin smoke trails rising against the night sky, coming from the direction of Ashwood territory. Campfires, Ghost said grimly. Been appearing over the last 3 days. Different locations each night, but always circling closer. Someone's mapping our territory. My father? Maybe. Or maybe something worse. Ghost pulled out a small leather pouch and handed it to Vera. Found this at our eastern border yesterday. Sage didn't want to worry you or Kieran until we knew more. But Vera opened the pouch and immediately wished she hadn't. Inside were 3 items. A lock of honey blonde hair, her hair, probably taken from her old room, a strip of fabric from the dress she'd worn at the Harvest Moon Festival, and a piece of parchment with words written in blood-red ink. The Council of Alphas has declared the feral pack unlawful and in violation of territorial sovereignty. Kieran of No Pack and his followers have 30 days to disband or face collective enforcement. The Omega Vera is to be returned to her rightful guardian for proper placement. This is not negotiable. It was signed by 7 different alphas, including her father. The Council of Alphas, the governing body that presided over all werewolf packs in the Northern Territories. They almost never got involved in individual pack disputes. But when they did, their word was absolute law. They're going to destroy us, Vera whispered, horror washing over her. They're using me as an excuse to wipe out the entire feral pack. Looks like it, Ghost agreed quietly. Your father must have convinced them that we're a threat to the pack system itself. Which, to be fair, we kind of are. Every wolf we take in, every runaway we shelter, it undermines their authority. They were always going to come for us eventually. You just gave them a legal justification. Vera felt like she was going to be sick. I have to leave. If I go back, if I turn myself in, maybe they'll leave the pack alone. You know that's not how this works. Ghost's silver eyes were sympathetic but firm. They don't want you specifically, Vera. They want to make an example. Show every potential runaway what happens when you reject the system. If you go back, they'll still destroy the pack. And you'll be trapped again. Probably in an even worse situation than before. Then what do? We fight, a new voice said. Vera turned to find Kieran climbing up to join them, his expression grim. He must have woken when she left and followed. We fight. Or we run. Those are our only options. 7 alphas, Kieran, Ghost said. 7 packs. That's over 500 wolves against our 73. We can't win that fight. Then we run. Kieran looked at Vera. We evacuate. Find new territory somewhere outside council jurisdiction. Start over. The council claims jurisdiction over the entire Northern Territories, Ghost pointed out. We'd have to go south, past the border territories. That's rogue land, no pack structure, no protection, constant territorial fights with other refugees. We'd be trading one danger for another. At least we'd be alive, Kieran said. And free. Would we? Vera looked at the smoke trails on the horizon. How long before they find us again? How long before another council decides we're a threat and comes to wipe us out? We can't run forever, Kieran. Eventually, we run out of places to hide. Kieran's jaw tightened. She could see him running through scenarios, trying to find a solution that didn't end in death or submission. But there wasn't one. The system was designed to eliminate opposition. There might be another option, Ghost said slowly. But you're not going to like it. Tell me anyway. We appeal to the council directly, request a formal hearing, present our case for why the feral pack should be allowed to exist. Ghost held up a hand before Kieran could interrupt. I know they've already made their decision. But pack law requires them to hear challenges to council edicts. If we can convince even one alpha to side with us, they have to reconsider. That's suicide, Kieran said flatly. Walking into a room full of alphas who want us dead and asking them nicely to change their minds? It's better than guaranteed death fighting an army, Ghost countered. And it buys us time. Council hearings take weeks to arrange, and they can't legally attack us while the hearing is pending. That gives us 30 days to prepare either a good defense or a good escape plan. Vera thought about the parchment, about her father's signature among the 7. About Aurora probably celebrating this victory. Her mother relieved to have the family embarrassment finally dealt with, And she thought about her pack, River with his gentle hands and healing knowledge, Sage with her fierce loyalty and warrior spirit, Frost with her grandmother's wisdom, Storm with his barely contained aggression that masked deep insecurity. All 73 wolves who'd chosen freedom over comfort, who'd built something beautiful in this hidden valley. They deserved better than to be hunted down like animals. "I'll go," Vera said. "I'll testify at the hearing. Tell them what the pack system does to Omegas, how it treats people like property. Maybe if they hear it directly from someone who lived it." "They won't care," Kieran said gently. "The alphas on the council benefit from the current system. They're not going to change it because one Omega tells a sad story." "Maybe not, but at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have stood up and said, 'This is wrong,' instead of just running or dying quietly." Vera took his hand. "You taught me that. You taught me that choosing to fight for what's right matters, even when you know you'll lose." Kieran closed his eyes, pain crossing his face. "I hate that you learned that lesson. I hate that the world works this way." "So do I. But it does, and we have to deal with it." Vera looked at Ghost. "How do we request a hearing?" "I'll send word at dawn. They'll probably schedule it for the new moon. That's their traditional meeting time. 3 weeks from now." Ghost's expression was troubled. "But Vera, you need to understand what you're volunteering for. Council hearings aren't gentle. They'll interrogate you, challenge every statement, try to break you down and make you admit you were wrong to leave. They'll bring up every mistake, every flaw, every reason you deserved what happened to you. It's psychological warfare disguised as legal process." "I can handle it," Vera said with more confidence than she felt. "Can you?" Kieran turned her to face him fully. "Because I'll be standing right there, watching them tear you apart. And I won't be able to do anything to stop it. That's going to kill me, Vera. Watching them hurt you and not being able to protect you. Then don't watch." Vera cupped his face. "Close your eyes, trust that I'm strong enough, and be there to catch me when it's over. That's how you protect me." Kieran pulled her into a fierce embrace. "I love you, and I'm terrified of what they're going to do to you. I love you too, and I'm terrified of what they'll do to all of us if we don't try." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other against the cold mountain wind and the impossible future looming ahead. "We should tell the pack," Ghost said finally. "They deserve to know what's coming." The emergency pack meeting was somber. Kieran explained the situation while Vera stood beside him, the council's parchment laid out for everyone to see. 73 wolves looked at their alpha with fear and resignation and stubborn determination. "We're not giving up without a fight," Storm declared, his young face set in hard lines. "I say we hit them first, guerrilla tactics, take out their leaders before they can organize." "That's exactly what they want," Sage countered. "An excuse to call us violent rogues who deserve extermination. We attack first, we lose any moral high ground we might have." "We don't have moral high ground," another wolf called out. "We're ferals, society's rejects. They're never going to see us as anything but threats. Then we make them see us differently," River said, his quiet voice somehow cutting through the chaos. "We go to this hearing. We tell our stories, all of us, not just Vera's. We show them that every wolf in this pack is a person who was failed by the system, that we're not threats, we're refugees from their cruelty." "You think pretty words will change centuries of tradition?" An older beta scoffed. "No," River admitted. "But silence definitely won't. At least if we speak, we have a chance. Even a small one." The pack debated late into the night. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to run. Some, like River, believed in the power of testimony. In the end, they voted. 35 for requesting the hearing, 28 for evacuating, 10 for preemptive strikes. The hearing won by a slim margin. Subscribe if you believe some battles are worth fighting even when victory seems impossible. Because packs like Kieran's need people who understand that standing up for what's right matters more than winning. Tell me in the comment below. Would you testify at a council hearing knowing they'd try to break you? Or would you choose to run? Ghost sent a runner at dawn with their formal request. The response came 3 days later. A raven carrying a scroll sealed with 7 different pack insignias. The Council of Alphas accepts the Feral Pack's request for hearing. Proceedings will commence on the new moon at the Grand Lodge in neutral territory. Alpha Kirin and the Omega Vera are required to appear. Failure to attend will be considered admission of guilt and result in immediate enforcement action. 3 weeks. They had 3 weeks to prepare a defense against a system that had existed for centuries. Vera threw herself into preparation. She wrote out her testimony, editing and revising until every word was perfect. She practiced speaking in front of the pack, learning to control her voice even when her hands shook. She studied pack law with Frost, who knew more about legal precedent than anyone, and every night, she fell asleep beside Kirin, memorizing the feeling of safety in case she never felt it again. "What if they decide to execute us?" she asked one night, the question that had been haunting her since the council's letter arrived. "Then we die knowing we tried to change things," Kirin said. "And maybe our deaths will inspire others. Maybe some young Omega 50 years from now will hear about the feral pack that stood up to the council, and it'll give them courage to do the same." "That's not very comforting." "No," Kirin agreed. "But it's the truth. Revolution isn't comfortable. Change isn't safe. But it's necessary." Vera thought about her grandmother's words again. "You're special, Vera. Never forget that." Maybe this was what she'd meant. Not special because of some inherent quality, but special because she'd been given an opportunity to stand up and speak truth to power, even if it cost her everything. The night before they were scheduled to leave for the Grand Lodge, the pack held a ceremony. Every wolf spoke, sharing their story, why they'd left their birth pack, what the feral pack had given them, why they believed in what they'd built together. When it was Vera's turn, she stood in the center of the circle and spoke from her heart. "A few months ago, I was broken. I was told I was worthless, defective, a burden. I believed it because I'd heard it my entire life. But then I found you, all of you, and you showed me something different. You showed me that my value isn't determined by my designation or my usefulness to others, that I'm allowed to choose my own path. That freedom is worth fighting for." She looked around at the faces illuminated by firelight, her pack, her family. "Tomorrow, Kirin and I go to face the council. I don't know if we'll win. But I know that standing here tonight, surrounded by wolves who chose each other, I've already won the only thing that matters. I'm free, and whatever happens next, they can never take that from me." The pack erupted in howls, a song of defiance and solidarity that echoed through the valley and out into the night. Let the council hear it. Let them know that the wolves they sought to silence had found their voices, and they were roaring. Chapter 10. The Trial of Freedom. The Grand Lodge stood like a monument to pack tradition, massive timber and stone, built centuries ago by the first Alpha Council to establish order in the Northern Territories. It was neutral ground where no single pack held power, where the 7 ruling alphas met to decide matters that affected all werewolf kind. And today, it would decide the fate of the feral pack. Vera and Kirin arrived at dawn, accompanied by Sage, River, and Ghost as witnesses. The rest of the pack remained at the valley, prepared to evacuate at a moment's notice if things went badly. "Remember," Sage murmured as they approached the towering entrance. "Stay calm. Don't let them provoke you into losing your temper. That's what they want, an excuse to call you unstable and dangerous." Vera nodded, though her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She wore simple clothing, leather pants, and a wool tunic, refusing to dress up for these people. She wasn't here to impress them. She was here to tell the truth. Kirin squeezed her hand once, his golden eyes steady. "Whatever happens, we face it together. Together." Vera echoed. The massive doors swung open. The interior was breathtaking. A great hall with vaulted ceilings and walls covered in carvings depicting werewolf history. At the far end, 7 thrones sat on a raised dais, and in those thrones sat the Council of Alphas. Vera recognized her father immediately. Alpha Richard Ashwood sat in the 3rd throne from the left, his steel-gray eyes tracking her movement with cold calculation. Beside him sat Alpha Garrett of Crescent Valley, the man whose scarred son Vera had been sold to. The others she knew only by reputation. Alpha Helena of Riverside Pack, a woman known for her strict traditional values. Alpha Thomas of Mountain Ridge, an elderly wolf whose pack had existed longer than most. Alpha Dominic of Shadowpine, Kirin's birth pack, the father who'd disowned him. Alpha Katherine of Silverwood, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and sharper judgment, and at the center, in the largest throne, sat High Alpha Marcus of the Council itself, elected leader of the Seven. Wait, Marcus? Vera felt Kieran stiffen beside her. She'd told the document writer not to use that name, but apparently the High Alpha himself bore it. Of all the terrible luck, High Alpha Marcus was ancient, easily in his 70s, with pure white hair and eyes that had seen generations of wolves rise and fall. He radiated power and authority that made even the other alphas seem diminished. Approach. His voice boomed through the hall. They walked forward, their small group dwarfed by the massive space. Vera could feel dozens of eyes watching from the gallery pack representatives who'd come to witness the proceedings. She spotted Aurora in the Ashwood section, looking satisfied and cruel. Her mother sat beside her, face carefully neutral. They reached the center of the hall and stopped. Kieran, formerly of Shadowpine Pack, High Alpha Marcus began. You stand accused of harboring fugitives, undermining pack authority, and violating territorial sovereignty by establishing an unlawful pack in claimed territory. How do you plead? Not guilty, Kieran said clearly. On all counts. A ripple of murmurs went through the gallery. The Omega Vera, formerly of Ashwood Pack, Marcus continued. You stand accused of breaking a formal mating contract, abandoning your pack obligations, and rejecting the natural order ordained by the Moon Goddess. How do you plead? Vera lifted her chin. Not guilty. I reject the premise that choosing freedom is a crime. Her father's face darkened with rage, but he remained silent. Marcus leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying them. This council has reviewed the charges and evidence. However, pack law grants you the right to present your defense. You may call witnesses, provide testimony, and make your case. Alpha Kieran, you may begin. Kieran stepped forward. High Council, I stand before you not as a criminal, but as a wolf who saw injustice and chose to act. 14 years ago, I left my birth pack because I refused to kill a friend to prove my dominance. I was called weak, unworthy, a disgrace to the Alpha name. He glanced at Dominic, his father, who refused to meet his eyes. I came to the mountains expecting to die. Instead, I found others like me, wolves who'd been rejected by the pack system for refusing to fit into boxes that didn't suit them. So you admit to harboring fugitives? Alpha Helena interrupted. I admit to offering sanctuary to wolves who were failed by their packs, Kieran corrected. There's a difference. Every wolf in my pack left their birth pack because they were being abused, forced into unwanted matings, or punished for being different. We didn't steal anyone. We gave refuge to those who had nowhere else to go. The pack system exists for a reason, Alpha Thomas said, his elderly voice sharp. Without hierarchy and structure, we're no better than rogues. Chaos and violence follow when wolves reject their proper place. With respect, High Alpha, my pack has existed for 14 years without violence or chaos, Kieran replied. We have alphas, betas, and omegas living together in harmony because we're built on choice instead of coercion. We prove every day that there's another way, a way that undermines every pack in these territories, Richard snarled. Every time you take in a runaway, you encourage others to abandon their obligations. You're a cancer, Kieran, and cancers must be cut out. Obligations? Kieran's voice dropped dangerously. Is that what you call forcing your daughter into a mating with a stranger? An obligation? She's an Omega. Richard shot back. Omegas serve the pack through strategic matings. That's their purpose. That's what the Moon Goddess intended. The Moon Goddess created us to be free, Vera said, her voice cutting through the argument. All eyes turned to her. That's what my grandmother taught me. That's what I believe. And I'm ready to testify to that truth. High Alpha Marcus studied her for a long moment. Very well, Omega Vera. Speak your piece. Vera took a deep breath and stepped forward. This was it. The moment everything hinged on. I was born an Omega in a pack that saw designations as destiny, she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. From my first breath, I was taught that I was less than, weaker than, valuable only for what I could provide to others, breeding potential, alliance opportunities, decorative purposes. My own father called me defective. My sister used me as a contrast to make herself shine brighter. My mother couldn't look at me without disappointment. She could see her family in the gallery now. Aurora looked bored. Her mother looked uncomfortable. Her father looked furious. When I experienced my first heat, my father sold me. Not to someone I loved or even knew. To a stranger from Crescent Valley. Someone even other Omegas rejected. I was told I should be grateful. That this was my purpose. That refusing would be selfish and ungrateful. Vera's voice grew stronger. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't spend my life as someone's unwanted burden, trapped in a mating I never consented to, so I ran. And yes, I broke a contract I never agreed to in the first place. A contract that treated me like property instead of a person. You were privileged. Alpha Garrett spoke up, the man whose son she'd been sold to. You had shelter, food, protection. You threw it away for foolish notions of freedom. You call it privilege, Vera replied. I call it a cage. A comfortable cage is still a cage. And I'd rather struggle in freedom than thrive in captivity. Poetic, Alpha Helena said dryly. But the pack system has existed for centuries. It provides order, stability, protection. What you call captivity, we call civilization. Without it, we'd be savages. Are we? River stepped forward, his gentle voice carrying surprising authority. I left my pack after being claimed against my will. The alpha who took me said it was his right, that I should be honored. When I fought back, I was punished, starved, isolated, beaten until I learned submission. Is that civilization, High Alpha, or is that slavery dressed up in tradition? Helena's expression flickered just for a moment with something that might have been doubt. I killed an alpha who tried to force a mating bond, Sage added, moving forward as well. Self-defense. But my pack said I should have submitted, that refusing an alpha's claim was grounds for execution, so I ran. Found Kieran's pack, and for 3 years, I've lived without fear of being assaulted by someone who thinks they own me. That's not chaos. That's safety. One by one, the wolves who'd come as witnesses stepped forward. Ghost, who'd been exiled for being born sterile, worthless, as an Omega who couldn't bear children. Storm, who'd been beaten by his alpha father for showing inappropriate emotions instead of constant aggression. Each story more heartbreaking than the last. Each one a damning indictment of the system the council upheld. The gallery was silent now. Even some of the pack representatives looked troubled. High Alpha Marcus raised his hand for silence. Enough. We've heard your testimonies. They are concerning. But personal grievances do not justify rebellion against pack law. The system may have flaws, but it is the system we have. Tearing it down creates only chaos. Then fix it, Vera said desperately. If you acknowledge the flaws exist, change the laws, make it illegal to force matings, give Omegas legal protection and agency, create paths for wolves to leave abusive packs without being branded rogues. You have the power to make the system better, so do it. You presume to tell this council how to govern? Richard's voice was ice. I presume to ask for basic dignity, Vera shot back. For myself, and every wolf like me. Is that really too much? The 7 alphas conferred in low voices. Vera's heart pounded as she watched them debate her fate, her pack's fate. Kieran's hand found hers, squeezing gently. Finally, High Alpha Marcus spoke. This council finds that while your personal circumstances were unfortunate, they do not justify the establishment of an unlawful pack. Kieran of No Pack, you are ordered to disband your pack immediately. Your wolves must return to their birth packs or seek proper placement through legal channels. Vera felt her world crumble. As for the Omega Vera, Marcus continued, you will be returned to your father's custody for proper placement. No. The word rang through the hall like a bell. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. Alpha Dominic of Shadowpine. Kieran's father had stood from his throne. No, he repeated, his voice heavy with something that might have been regret. I cannot support this ruling. The council erupted in shocked murmurs. Dominic, Richard hissed. We voted. And I'm changing my vote, Dominic interrupted. He looked at Kieran for the first time since they'd entered the hall. 14 years ago, I told my son he was weak for refusing to kill his friend. I called him unworthy of the alpha name. I was wrong." His voice cracked slightly. "He was stronger than me. Strong enough to walk away from power because his conscience demanded it. Strong enough to build something better instead of just complaining about what was broken. And I was too proud to see it." Kieran stood frozen, shock written across his face. "I've watched him over the years," Dominic continued, addressing the council now. "Watched his pack thrive without violence or tyranny. Watched him take in wolves that we all of us failed. And I've realized something. We're not upholding tradition. We're enforcing conformity at the cost of our people's well-being. That's not strength. That's cowardice." He looked at High Alpha Marcus. "I formally withdraw my support for enforcement action, and I propose we use this as an opportunity to reform pack law, starting with legal protections for Omegas and the right to refuse forced matings." The silence that followed was absolute. High Alpha Marcus stared at Dominic with unreadable eyes. "You realize what you're proposing? Centuries of precedent, built on the suffering of wolves like these," Dominic interrupted, gesturing to Vera and her pack. "We can do better. We should do better. Our strength should come from willing loyalty, not fear and coercion." "This is madness," Helena protested. "If we allow wolves to simply leave whenever they're unhappy, then maybe we should examine why so many wolves are unhappy," a new voice said. Every head turned to the gallery. Damon Blackthorne stood, his ice-blue eyes commanding attention. "I'm not on the council, but as alpha of the Blackthorne pack, I'm entitled to speak at these proceedings, and I support Shadowpine's proposal. The system is broken, we all know it. We just don't want to admit it because admitting it means acknowledging our own complicity." "You have no standing here," Richard snarled. "I have the standing of someone who almost killed a decent wolf to claim an Omega who didn't want me," Damon replied coolly. "I walked away from that fight because I realized I was part of the problem. Maybe it's time the rest of you did the same." More voices rose from the gallery, younger alphas, some betas, even a few brave Omegas speaking up. The cracks in the system that the feral pack represented were spreading, and not even the council could seal them shut. High Alpha Marcus held up his hand for silence. When it finally came, he looked ancient and tired. "This council will recess to deliberate. We will reconvene in 1 hour with a final ruling." The 7 alphas filed out, their expressions ranging from furious to thoughtful. Vera's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Kieran hadn't caught her. "Did that just happen?" she whispered. I think we might have started something," Kieran replied, his voice filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. The hour that followed was agony. Vera and her pack waited in a side chamber while the council deliberated their fate. Dominic appeared briefly, approaching Kieran with hesitant steps. "Son," he said quietly, "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness." "You're right, you don't." Kieran's voice was hard. "But thank you. For speaking up. For finally seeing." Dominic nodded and left without another word. Finally, a messenger arrived. "The council is ready." They filed back into the great hall. The 7 alphas sat on their thrones once more, their faces grave. High Alpha Marcus spoke. "After much deliberation, this council has reached a decision. By a vote of 4 to 3, we have decided." He paused, and Vera couldn't breathe. "To grant the feral pack provisional legal status as an independent pack, subject to annual review and compliance with revised pack law." Vera's heart stopped. "Furthermore," Marcus continued, "this council recognizes the need for reform. Effective immediately, forced matings are declared illegal. All Omegas must consent to pair bonds, and refusal cannot be grounds for punishment. Wolves seeking to leave abusive pack situations may petition the council for transfer without being branded rogues." He looked directly at Vera. "These reforms are being implemented because of your testimony, Omega Vera. And because brave wolves like Alpha Dominic were willing to acknowledge our failures, you have changed pack law. I hope you're prepared for the consequences." The hall erupted in chaos, cheers from some, outrage from others. Richard stood abruptly and stalked out, his face purple with rage. Aurora followed, shooting Vera a look of pure hatred. But Vera didn't care about them anymore. She turned to Kieran, who was staring at the council in shock. "We won," she whispered. "Kieran. We won." His golden eyes met hers, and slowly, so slowly, a smile spread across his face. "We won." They crashed together, laughing and crying at the same time. Sage and River and Ghost piled on, all of them embracing in a tangle of joy and relief and disbelief. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, they'd stood up to the system and won. Not just for themselves, but for every wolf who would come after. Epilogue. 6 months later, the feral pack's valley had changed. More wolves had joined over the winter runaways and refugees who'd heard about the pack that challenged the council and won. The den had been expanded, new chambers carved into the rock. The pack now numbered over 100 wolves, all drawn to the promise of freedom and choice. And at the center of it all stood Vera and Kieran, officially mated now. Their bond recognized even by pack law. They'd held the ceremony on the first day of spring, surrounded by their pack family, and even a few unexpected guests. Dominic had come, along with several wolves from Shadowpine Pack, who were curious about this new way of living. Damon had sent a gift, a massive stag for the celebration feast, along with a note that simply read, "Congratulations, you've earned this." Even some of the younger Ashwood wolves had shown up, though Richard and her immediate family remained notably absent. Vera didn't mourn their absence. She'd built a new family, one that chose her every day. "Alpha Kieran!" A young wolf came running up, breathless with excitement. The scouts found another one, a beta from Eastern Pack. Says his alpha was forcing him into warrior service, even though he wanted to be a healer. "Can we take him in?" Kieran looked at Vera, who smiled. "Of course we can. Show him to River. He's always looking for apprentices." The young wolf ran off, and Kieran wrapped his arms around Vera from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "We're going to run out of space at this rate. Then we'll build more dens, or establish sister packs in other territories. The word is spreading, Kieran. Wolves everywhere are realizing they have choices now." Vera leaned back against his chest, contentment washing over her. "We did this. We changed things." "You changed things," Kieran corrected. "You were brave enough to run. Everything else followed from that." Vera thought about the terrified girl who'd fled into the wilderness 6 months ago, expecting to die. She'd been so broken then, so convinced of her own worthlessness. That girl was gone now. In her place stood an alpha's mate, a pack leader, a revolutionary who'd reshaped werewolf law, someone who'd learned that her value wasn't determined by her designation or her usefulness to others, someone who'd discovered that the bravest thing you could do was choose yourself. "What are you thinking about?" Kieran murmured against her ear. "My grandmother," Vera replied. "She told me I was special. I spent years thinking she was just being kind, but maybe she knew. Maybe she saw what I could become if I just had the courage to try. She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." Vera turned in his arms to face him. "I hope she's watching, wherever she is, and knows that her words mattered. That they saved me." Kieran kissed her soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, Vera, my fierce, brave, revolutionary mate." "I love you too," Vera replied. "My golden-eyed protector who taught me what pack really means." Around them, their pack continued about their daily lives, hunting, healing, teaching, learning, building something better than what they'd left behind, proving every day that another way was possible. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would always be alphas like Richard who clung to the old ways. There would be challenges and setbacks and moments of doubt, but they'd face it together, as a pack, as a family, as wolves who'd chosen freedom over fear, and that made them unstoppable. If Vera's journey moved you, subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Stories about wolves who refused to break, no matter how hard the world tried. Because every underdog deserves an audience that believes in them. Drop a comment below. What was your favorite moment from Vera's story? Share it so others can find hope in her courage too. Vera's story from broken Omega camping alone in the woods to revolutionary leader who changed pack law has come to an end. She found her pack, her mate, her voice, and her power, and in doing so, She proved that even the most worthless among us can reshape the world if we just have the courage to try. Thank you for following her journey.